A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Matt Williams got a brilliant start from the third row of the grid.
He's gone, he's hit him, he's straight off at the chase.
A half-second lead. Oh, with the sizzling car in the background.
He has, oh, he's round on the last lap.
There's a massive accident.
Next to the inside, what a move, what a move.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the AMS Oz Super 2 series, back for some more sprint racing action. And tonight, it's a pair of sprint races around Darwin's Hidden Valley Raceway. We're getting very, very close. In actual fact, we will cross over the halfway point in the season tonight. Still plenty of action lies ahead, but there's so many talking points on the table right now. The man who's in form at the moment, JP Coeurrier, is storming up the leaderboard. Foley and Boak are trying to consolidate their championship at the top, and everybody is hungry for another race win, or indeed their first race win if they can pull it off. We're going to find a bit of turmoil tonight in the top end, but for one or two drivers, it's going to be triumph. My name's Steve Devries, aka Nether, here bringing you the broadcast as per usual, and joining me, having missed the last round at Winton, is my fellow colleague and commentator Hans Brunswick. How are you, Hans?
Hello, Steve. Good to be back and enjoying. I'm just looking at the practice session right now, and we're seeing some cars going into turn one and knocking out some Dunlop signs, which is always beautiful. But yeah, good to be back, and we actually spent the time in the commentary box up in Winton on the weekend, so that was good fun.
Yeah, it certainly was. We definitely had a ball up there with the Victorian State Circuit Racing Championships up at Winton for round 3, and round 4 coming up next month as well. Set to be a couple of national rounds involved there with Formula Ford and Formula V as well, so we're definitely looking forward to that. But since we did our last broadcast back in a couple of weeks ago, actually, to be more precise, it was the 30th of May. It feels like it was a bit longer ago than that. So we had a pair of sprint races at Winton Motor Raceway there. June the 20th is where we find ourselves tonight for Hidden Valley, and then a feature race to come up in Townsville, and then there's a little bit of a gap to Queensland Raceway and then Calder Park, and then we start getting into all the real fun stuff right towards the back end of the season, with plenty of feature race and endurance length racing to go along with it. Well, let's have a quick look at how the drivers' points are situated after the first 6 rounds, or across the first 9 races, given we do a couple of sprint races as well. Phil Boak still leads the championship quite comfortably, having his teammate for a little bit of, as a rear tail gunner, I guess you can call him there, in terms of a points buffer. Foley having some trouble with scoring points and internet connection dramas earlier on in the season, but he's found his way back up the order. So those two gentlemen have 2 wins apiece, the PBF race engineering duo. Will Devonish is coming along quite nicely, despite not having a win on the board. The others with wins, Mitchell Hathaway and Brennan Ross there in 4th and 5th place, not too far apart. Likewise, Cam Rutledge and Turmo, very, very close together. And then have a look at the man in 10th place at the moment, JP Coeurrier. He's finally got all his gremlins sorted, and he has got the last 3 wins consecutively on the season. So both race wins at the last time out in Winton, and then the Barbagallo feature race he took out as well. So he is the man in form. He's the one with the target on his back that everybody wants to beat at the moment, Hans.
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting to see the points turnout at the moment, because Will Devonish, he's just been more consistent than even, I'd say, even compared to any of the race winners, because even though you may win a race, it's actually good for the one race, and it looks good on the round tally. But unfortunately, if you're not consistent, and with a lot of these feature races coming up, what's going to happen is that if you get spilt for whatever reason, there's no coming back from the problem. So you basically either get a very low points count or you DNF. Well, that's actually, it has a severe effect on your championship chances, and therefore you've just got to be as consistent as possible. And although we see the 2 PBF race engineering drivers up there, I mean, Will Devonish has been a bit more consistent than Hathaway and Rossi and JP Coeurrier, although he's been the form man lately. A poor start to the season has really cruelled his chances thus far, but there's still a long way to go halfway of the season, like you said. We're going to see if JP Coeurrier can really start to, I mean, there's about a 700, 800 points margin. I mean, we don't know if JP Coeurrier can make that up, but I mean, anything is possible in this championship. We were just like, oh, we can't really expect much from certain people, and then all of a sudden they just come on gangbusters like JP Coeurrier has after all the gremlins have been sorted out. But no, it's good to see him get up with the 3 wins in a row, which he might be going for 4 wins today if he's managing to keep that form going.
Yeah, he certainly might be going for 4 in a row if he can keep going. He's inside the top 5 in practice times at the moment as the practice session winds down. But we'll very quickly get to tonight's racing action. So, as we said, Hidden Valley Raceway. The lap times here are very, very quick. They're just around the minute 5, minute 6, minute 7 mark, which is quite to see. The car's got to perform well here. You've got to have a good balance of straight line speed for ultimate horsepower at the top end, but then you've got to have a car that flows really, really well. You've got to have a car that's very, very good on its brakes. You've got to have a little bit of trail braking in some of these corners as well. So there's a lot of demands placed on the car. Anti-clockwise circuit, 14 corners, so 8 to the left and 6 to the right. So it's not terrible in terms of the front rear tyre balance, but you really start to see that right hand side take a bit of a pounding, especially through the long sweeping right hander at turn 1 and then through the last couple of corners as well.
Yeah, the overtaking opportunities, having a big long straight going into a 180-degree carousel-like corner. The good thing about that is that actually it's a really good overtaking opportunity. So if you've got something under brakes and, you've got to get good horsepower from the other end of the straight, out of turn 14, you can actually make a really good pass down there. And sometimes they'll run you up all the way to the inside of the wall. But if you can get past there, there's actually a really good place to do it. Then in the run up to the valley section, turn 5 is another good passing opportunity. Turn 6, it's a bit of congestion there, so we need to perhaps keep our eyes open and see if there's a bit of nose to tail action there. A lot of trail braking through turn 7, and then turn 14 onto the main straight as a trail braking zone as well. But we're just watching qualifying now is about to start, so we're just seeing a couple of cars go out. So on screen right now is Castrol Racing Turmo. So that's the 715 Nissan Altima, and I can't quite tell which car that is behind him.
Yeah, that's a new entrant, I believe. That's Bailey Hall in the car behind. So we haven't seen haven't seen him in the competition, I don't think, at all up until this point. Just having a look through the point standings, and no, he hasn't actually registered any races to date. So this is his first race in AMS Oz Super 2 for Bailey Hall. Looks like I think he's campaigning, I believe that might be a ZB Commodore back there. I'm just trying to get a glimpse with the extended track cameras, and yeah, I believe that looks like a ZB. Yeah, so as per usual, 15-minute qualifying session. It says 4 laps there, but realistically you only get 2 bites at the cherry. Most drivers will go after it pretty hard. Although Turmo spent a fair bit of time putting some tyre and brake temperatures in here, because he will lose a fair bit of brake temperature by the time he gets to turn number 1. And in fact, we will go riding with bonnet cam for Turmo. And Hans, you may as well talk us through this one.
So we're just passing the start finish straight now, 6th gear, then we're going to get onto the brakes. We're looking for the 100 marker, just before the 100 marker, down through the gears. We're going down 4 gears here, so sequential gearbox 4 times. We're going down to second, then trail braking past the apex, gently on with the throttle, not trying to create too much wheel spin, not trying to get too much dirt on the exit, then up through the valley section now. We're going to, the corners are almost inconsequential, but on a qualifying setup, it's quite daunting. Then into the hairpin now. This is turn 6, and we're just seeing one of the Scuderia Alitalia cars go off. And Turmo's got the lights on, he's got the eyes on. And then turn 7 now, a bit of trail braking here as well. Then a couple of more inconsequential corners, because a lot of this you spend flat when you've got a good balance on the car. So this is where we saw Nick Percat and Macaulay Jones go off in the Supercars event. And then now we're coming up to turn 13 and 14 complex. A lot of trail braking here, and you've got to get a apex and bring on the throttle in one progressive movement, and then you're up through the gears again, and you're onto the drag strip style main straight.
And the benchmark time is a 1 minute 6.724. Probably won't last too long, I'd imagine. He did miss a couple of apexes there as well, so there's a few little bits of his second lap that he can tidy up, Turmo. Bailey Hall registers a time that's just 4 and a bit tenths behind Turmo. and we expect the times to start slowly coming in. There's not too many guys on track at the moment. If I count them up, there's about 8 cars on track at the moment. 2 of them are currently on their 3 or 4 of them are now currently on their second flying laps. Cam Rutledge pops up temporarily into P2, and Glenn Miles at the back. That probably would have been the first of the... actually, no, he's not one of the Scuderia Italia cars. He's one of the Playboy Racing cars a bit further down the field. Further time there from Cracker, popping up into P4 provisionally. Turmo just a tenth and a little bit up through first sector and through the second sector. And this will be his last flying lap. Has he got anything to improve on? Certainly looked okay. Not going to be a stellar improvement. In actual fact, he found a little bit more time in that last sector. So nearly a half-second improvement. Not too bad. Cam Rutledge, the man's currently sitting P2. Now, this is the trouble here, Hans. A little bit of lap traffic as well. Some of these guys, actually, that's Glenn Miles in the Spitwater car, just going wide. So not too bad. It gives a free run, effectively, to Cam Rutledge, but he's currently down on his provisional lap time and on his best lap time. So I dare say this may not be an improvement. In actual fact, he's aborted. So he's realised there was no point pressing on, and he aborts. Steve Burko about to start his first flying lap as well, and followed by Glenn Miles, who's just completed his 2 laps. He's currently anchored to the bottom of the standings.
I don't know why Glenn Miles continued with that, because once he went off and had that bit of half lose there, it just really cruelled his chances at beating his best lap time. So unfortunately, Glenn Miles is about 6 seconds off the pace. Steve Burko, we're watching him. He's now switched to the sequential gearbox, and he's only 2 tenths down on Turmo's best time. We might see times into the 5s here if he can stitch... Sorry, not Burko, but if some of the top guys can really stitch a good lap together. But Burko, he's probably going to go for provisional second at the moment if he continues with the same pace. He doesn't lose any more time. But up through the... Just coming out of the valley section now. Yeah, he's lost a bit more, so 6 tenths of a second. He's going to be... he's still in front of Bailey Hall at the moment, but he's definitely behind Bailey Hall now. Yeah. He's just got it all wrong there. Bit too much brake, and the car steered well wide of the ideal line. So he's got 1 more lap to do it. So that was 3 seconds off. He lost 3 seconds with that, but we'll see what Burko can do. He's going again, but I think that really affected his run on the main straight, so this lap might not be that great either. No,
that would have stung him quite badly as well, because you lose all that momentum going wide and then having to pick up the throttle very, very late. It would have hurt his top end speed down that straight, so there definitely would have been a time loss here. And you can see he's down on his provisional bet on his PB by not very much, but still behind the first place man. But the times are not that quick at the moment, so there's still plenty of improvement room to find. Let's look a bit further down the order to see Zach Ross is out there at the moment. So he looks like he's coming around to start his, or actually complete his first flying lap. In actual fact, he was purple through the first sector, Zach Ross, and he goes to the top. So good lap from Zach, and the time comes up on our screen as a 1 minute 6.091. So very, very quick, not very far away from getting into the 5s. Steve Burko moves up to 5th place, speaking of 5s. Let's go and have a look at our provisional pole sitter at the moment. He's on his second flying lap, flying the mother colours in the FG Falcon, and up fractionally on his Sector 1 time. I'm about to get the Sector 2 timing split just on the other side of turn 7, 8, 9 complex here. Definitely looks very, very smooth. He's found some more time too. He's now 2 tenths up. And look at that, slides the back end out through the last couple of corners here as well. So really pointing in the right direction is Zach Ross. And that's a beautiful exit out of the final corner as well. This looks like he's going to go well and truly into the 5s. Turmo didn't have much margin in the end, but Zach Ross has finally broken the 1 minute 6 barrier. We're into the 5s.
Yeah, with a 1 minute 5.892. So that's an impressive effort. Actually, I was going to comment that the balance on the car looks really good, and then he did that 4-wheel drift just coming out of the valley section. So that was a bit amusing. But no, the Mother FGX Falcon is looking real good. Let's see if he can translate that into race pace. But incidentally, we've got Brenton Foley in car 1, and he's got 105.7. So he's beat he's beat Zach Ross's time already, so that's 0.139 seconds up, and he's already got another flying lap to boot as well, and good drive out of there. So he's coming up now. He's going to go up to fifth gear here and then into turn 5. So we'll just have a look what the car does under brakes. Wow, the car's very straight under brakes and very neutral handling, so that's really good. And a bit of oversteer there, so going into turn 6 now. But he's up again, 1/10 of a second on his best time, so he's looking like he's going to improve that. And we're going to see if he can lower that benchmark even further.
Yeah, he set a lap time in practice that was 1:05.3, would you believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen. He's got similar pace to Zach Ross at the moment, and similar style as well at the back end of the car, wanting to overtake the front end of the car through turn 10 and 11, but he's found an astonishing amount of time, and he's going to go into probably about a 1:05.4, I would say, at this rate. Even better, 1:05.3, so he equals, or pretty close to equals, what his time was in practice. So an astonishing time. In actual fact, his practice time was the best. That is the best time that's come up across the weekend. So it's about to register when it gets its act together. But he has improved not only his own current pole position lap, but he's set the fastest time that anybody has set so far across the race weekend.
We haven't paid attention, but Jinx he's gotten up into P4, and Devonish has also gotten up into P2 as well. So,
and Jinx has gone P2.
Oh, Jinx has just gone P2 again. So he's actually bettered his personal best that time by 0.3 of a second, and now he's going to come in to the pit lane on his cooldown lap.
D2's out there in the FGX Falcon as well. So we're just looking to see which drivers have not actually set some times. So Dwayne Davies is one of them. He's currently out there at the moment. Who else is parked up that hasn't set a time? So no time from Philip Boak, no time from JP Coeurrier. Brendan Ross and Ricky Slick and Dwayne Davies, the other guys that have not set times, are out there now. Now I have also just noticed a very unusual name in the Brian Rolsh Scuderia Alitalia car. We believe that based on previous experience that there's a little somebody behind the wheel who shall remain nameless, but we've got a funny feeling who it will be. It's certainly not Rowan Atkinson behind the wheel.
It's definitely not Rowan Atkinson behind the wheel, because it's Johnny English.
D2 coming down to the line to start his first flying lap. In actual fact, hang on a minute. He's actually registered all his lap times, so he didn't actually set a time at all, Dwayne Davies. So bit of a surprise there. Not sure what's going on there.
Hathaway, incidentally, has gone up to second, provisional second, so he's gotten up ahead of Jinx. So he's only about 0.06 of a second in front of Jinx, but he's a long way back from Foley, so he's about 0.3 of a second behind. But HDS Racing, the pace is actually quite good. He's done a 1:05.6, I think that is.
Yeah, it is. It's a 1:05.650 is what he's set. So actually, that's a pretty respectable time for Mitchell Hathaway. Here's the FCR pair. Brendan Ross, and just behind him is Ricky Slick. And JP Coeurrier is leaving this till the last minute. And so too Phil Boak, both leaving this till the last minute to set some times. We're waiting so Brendan Ross can produce. And that's not a bad effort from Brendan Ross for a first up flying lap at Sector 1 split. Only a 10th down. So he's looking relatively good to sort of be in that half a dozen at the moment. And he's on his car looks very, very similar to Foley, just from the visual trackside cameras. Looking very, very straight. We have seen this car behave in a few weird ways in some of the previous broadcasts where it looks like it was very, very twitchy. So 2.25 tenths down on his Holden compatriot's pole position time as it stands at the moment. Ricky Slick's just dropping back a little bit from Brendan Ross. So Brendan Ross will come across the line. He's going to go up into P2, so that's a good first up effort. Just surpasses Mitchell Hathaway by less than a 10th, and he's still got more to go. Now Boak's come out into the lane as well. Ricky Slick has set his first time, and he pops up into P12. JP Coeurrier a little bit off the pace on this first flying lap, but probably just going to ease himself into it, I would imagine, having competed in the ASC Super2 earlier this week as well. Should have plenty of experience under the belt. His first flying lap is good enough for P9. And we go back and take a look and see what Brennan Ross is up to.
Oh, he takes a lot of curb through turn 7 there.
It was a 22.5
then-
through the first sector. Oh, and that car's
Oh,
got
he's going to
away.
spin. Oh, that was a bit of a half lose there, so that's going to cruel his chances of being able to challenge for the top spot. But let's see if we can limit his damage here. I don't think he'll actually beat his time, and he's aborted that lap, so he's just come in, he's realised that it's not going to do it.
And I think Ricky Slick's about to do the same, and yes, he has. He's boarding as well because he hasn't got any more laps to go. So Phil Boak is going to get across the line with 1:20 odd on the clock here. So he's potentially going to get both laps in, provided the server doesn't kick him out. And we go back to our man JP Coeurrier, who was in 9th. So it's the man who's got 3 of the last 3 race wins. And what time can he do? Currently P9 at the moment. And he only can advance 1 spot. So currently he's going to be provisionally starting on the 4th row of the grid. And our attention now turns to what Phil Boak can accomplish.
Sort of missed the apex there at turn 6, so a lot of trail braking needing to be done, and I went into the practice testing chat server before, and a lot of them said that they don't like trail braking, but trail braking is very important in these cars, and incidentally he's about 4.5 tenths of a second down on his teammate Brendan Foley, and Phil Boak is going to try and get a good run. He uses every little bit of road and then some, but he didn't get the dirt there. So he's going to try and keep as straight a line as possible for his first flying lap, and he's going to get his other lap in. So he's about 6 tenths of a second down, rather, with a 1:05.92, and he's taken a lot of track there. So he's using a bit more track, and he's going to double apex this first corner. So he goes out to the middle of the track, then comes in narrow, and a bit of slide there as well. So we're going to go on board, and the change of direction is quite good. Let's see if he takes a bit of curb. No, not quite, but he's braking down through the gears. Oh, and that's got something. So he's 0.015 seconds up, and he had a bit of a slide there. So let's see how he goes into turn 6. Just 1 cog back into second gear, and then bleeding on the throttle now, trying to be as smooth and gentle with it as possible. So yeah, he's about 1/100th of a second up. Oh, bit of a slide there. So will that hurt his chances? Yes, it has. So unfortunately, it's not going to go together for Phil Boak, but jubilation on the other side of the garage for Brenton Foley.
Now this will be interesting to see where he winds up here. A little bit leery on the loud pedal on the final corner as well, so he had a few moments. He was very, very quick in Sector 1, but he's lost time in Sector 2, and in Sector 3, he lost even more. So that little moment out of the final corner cost him dearly. He stays on the 4th row of the grid, so not where he would be expecting to be in this race after what was looking like a promising second flying lap to begin with. The pole man's going to be Brenton Foley, and Brenton Ross to join him on the front row. So that's not that's a bit of an unexpected front row. I mean, we kind of expected the PBF cars to be right up there, but a great job from Brenton Ross. Look at this for the Holden Brigade. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The top 7 cars are Holdens.
Yeah, it's interesting to note that it's felt like a long time since we've seen Brendan Ross back up there, but it's somewhat a return to form, which will be good to see. He was challenging the PBF cars in the early rounds of the championship. But, I mean, what about JP Coeurrier? A very underperforming session there. Definitely not what we would have expected if recent form was anything to go by.
No, in the top 10, but he is 9th, so look, he's not out of it. This is going to be quite an interesting race with regards to how the drivers elect to tackle this circuit. So we have seen really fast lap times already. We've seen really fast qualifying times, but I don't know how that's going to translate to the race, because I've been given some word that they're probably still going to have to carry about 90 odd litres of fuel just to get through the race. So it's about 4.2, 4.3 litres per lap, and we're going to be doing 21 laps. So when you do the math on that, it gives you about 90 litres worth of fuel, but you have to carry a little bit more to get through the formation lap as well. So there'll be plenty of fuel saving going on the grid. These drivers are not going to want to carry any more fuel than what they have to get through this opening sprint race.
Yeah, 90 litres. It's going to change the dynamic of the car and how it drives, having a lot more weight over the rear wheels. But also, I mean, depends how hard you fan the throttle as well. because you do need to warm up brakes and tires and all that sort of stuff. And in these cars, the best way to warm up the tires is actually to fan the throttle a little bit, then hard on the brakes, and it will the brake disc and the rotor will actually it'll translate the heat through the wheel and then into the tire carcass itself. So then the tire pressures come up. But yeah, so we're going to see if there is a bit of a fuel battle here, because although we don't have pit stops for fuel, we're going to see which one went a bit more brave on the fuel strategy, trying to save a bit of weight.
Yeah, we certainly will. That's the benefit of sprint racing. You don't have to come in for a stop unless you need to get some damage done or damage repaired, or you have a drive-through penalty or a stop-go penalty or of some sort of nature. But that's the benefit of sprinting, is just a all flat out until the checkered flag. Now, speaking of all flat out until the checkered flag, we did have a couple of incidents that were reported from the last round at Winton. If you were avid viewers of the broadcast, you would recall that we did have a couple of safety car periods in that opening race, and there was, as per the usual procedure, to lodge a query with the stewards to have a look at particular incidents, and we did find that a couple of the issues that came out of that race were not exactly caused by the drivers who committed those indiscretions themselves. Some of them were actually indeed helped along, such as I think it was Billy Dougal-Salonga, if memory serves me correctly, going deep at turn number 1. He was actually had been given a little bit of a helping hand to get that far into the weeds in the turn 1 runoff area. There were a few people that disobeyed the safety car procedures as well for the restart procedures. So there has been an official note handed out, and it's being reread in the briefing right now as we speak with regards to the safety car restart. So should there be another one tonight, the drivers have been reminded that they have to wait until the green flag is shown before they are permitted to advance to full throttle. There's to be no overlapping before the control line, and everyone's just got to pay a little bit of more attention at the restart. Here it's a little bit different. It's a much wider front straight and much wider turn 1 than it is at Winton, where it's a little bit more narrow. You can only get 2 cars sort of side by side. You have to get 3 cars side by side here quite comfortably, but still they'll have to pay attention at those restarts. The whole field, as a result of the issues that happened at Winton, has been put on notice. It's an official warning to say penalties will be handed out if there is a repeat. So the entire field has they haven't been given any yellow cards or any sort of penalty to from the race to hanging over. Otherwise, it would have altered the balance and altered the race results quite drastically. So they've deemed them all racing incidents, and they just said, right, you misbehave again, and you will get a penalty, whether that's in the form of a yellow card or a points penalty or a time penalty. It'll be decided should that comes to be.
Meanwhile, we've got a bit of a moment here, just a bit of a lull in proceedings. But Stephen, we've got to promote RevHead's review. We've got to promote the IPRA wrap up from the IPRA of Victoria wrap up from Winton Motor Raceway. We've got lovely Stephen DeVries, aka Nether. He's on the screen and doing some interviewing. So if anyone watching or anyone going back through this, if they can give it a view and hold up cards at the end of it, what they think of his performance, I think that was 10 out of 10 performance. And Stephen, maybe you should actually provide some media training services to people, because it was a bloody good job.
Well, in real life, I actually do a lot of talking for a living. I do a lot of training and that. So with regards to training drivers and stuff at work, so I'm a natural speaker. Although I was a little bit nervous when it came to doing that. I was a bit chuffed to be asked on the Saturday to do some of the interviews on the Sunday. So really, really grateful for the opportunity to do it. I do need a haircut. That's the one thing that's come out of that video, is my hair is a little bit long, so I've got to get that corrected between now and the next round in a couple of weeks. Actually, it's only 28 days away, believe it or not, 4 more weeks for Sandown for round 4, because it looks like we're going to be doing it again. But no, Pete Lyons does a great job with RevHeads, and he shoots some fantastic video on behalf of the Improved Production Racing Association of Victoria, and he was very, very... I'm very grateful to him for the opportunity to get involved a little bit more in the category I've been involved in with the last 12 months, and looking forward to the next 12 months that goes along with it. So it's going some places. The local state racing guys, get out there and support your local state racing. It's great to see plenty of different cars. The drivers are always happy to see people come out and ask questions about their car. Most of them very, very, grateful to see you there, and they'll quite happily give you 5 minutes to talk about all things racing if you've got the time to come down and see them. It's a fantastic experience.
Round 4 being at Sandown in a month, we should actually send an invitation out. All come and say hello to us, and it'll be good to see some faces there. And you can all walk around the pits. And there's a lot a GA ticket, a general admission ticket, can get you. It's only $25 for the Saturday, and it's $20 for the Saturday and $25 for the Sunday, I think it is, but it's $30 for the weekend pass, or $35 or something like that. But it's actually a very reasonable amount. So. Get around your local state racing. It's actually highly enjoyable, and the racing is just fantastic. And even if there's a small grid, like I found out in the Victorian Saloon Car Championship, it was so hard to follow. There was just so many things going on, and even I had spotters helping me, Stephen, Matt Dunlop, a few other blokes. It was just amazing to see. And they don't hold back. They give it a red hot go, and it's fantastic to see, isn't it, Steve?
Yeah, it certainly is. One thing we do need to promote, though, as well, Hans, is the upcoming GT3 or World Challenge finale that is this weekend out of on the Sunday. So it's going to be a 2-hour endurance race around Road America. It's the finale, and it's a 3-way fight for the championship. So Lewis Wedding currently heads that battle from Brendan Ross and Brendan Foley. All 3 of those guys can win the championship. There's 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different scenarios. You can start counting them up on all your fingers and toes as to how it'll pan out. We're going to have a little bit of an advanced pre-race show for that at the beginning of the broadcast to go through all those championship permutations, and then 2 hours from the start of the race we'll have ourselves a winner, and we'll have ourselves a GT3 world champion. So it'll be good to see. So please tune in for that this coming Sunday. Broadcast starts at 8:30 or just before 8:30 Eastern time. It'll be on a little bit earlier than usual. We normally start about 25 past 8 just to get through all the pre-race stuff, but we're going to start a little bit early just because we've got that extra stuff we want to cover with how the World Challenge is going to pan out. 4th and 5th place is actually not too far separated in that challenge as well. So 4th place Ozrob only leads Will Devonish by 11 points in that as well. So not only the top 3 spots up for grabs, but 4th and 5th place are up for grabs as well by the time the night's out. So we've been having a good field turn up as of late for GT3, and much like the field we've got tonight with 21 cars, we've been getting about 14 or so cars, or somewhere between 12 and 14 cars for GT in the last week or two. So it'd be great to see what that delivers. And if any of the drivers that normally drive in the World Challenge watching the broadcast tonight, just a reminder that it's only the drivers that have driven in the challenge to date are permitted to race. We do not accept new drivers coming into the last round of a season when a championship is still to be decided. So if you haven't driven in the GT World Challenge before but you'd like to, unfortunately you're going to have to wait for the next season because we don't want potential points being upset as a result of new drivers coming in and taking away drivers' points that are on offer or causing any sort of drama. We just lock it down and say only the drivers that have driven to date in a championship can compete.
It's a good rule, actually. That was interesting. That was interesting. We're just watching the practice session, and we just saw a car going at right angles to the track. I think that was one of the CRE cars, one of the chrome CRE ZB Commodores. Watching D2 having a go. We'll see if we can get that on the replay, actually.
Yeah, we will, actually. Here we go. So this is what we were watching before. The replay transition is misbehaving a bit, but this is what we saw very quickly, and then all of a sudden it disappeared. So that's what we were sort of clenching our teeth about there for a few moments.
Gritting our teeth, and our heart rates went up probably by about 20 beats a minute, didn't it?
Yeah, just a little bit briefly. So the warm-up session is just coming to an end. So driver's briefing is over and done with, and a few people have elected to turn some laps, but not too many. So we'll see how we go with the session having now expired and the drivers just taking their last few corners, and then we will be underway in a matter of a few minutes. And hopefully in about 20 or 25 to 30 minutes from now, we're going to have ourselves a race 1 winner. Yeah, this is rather interesting. I've not been informed that this was going to be a nighttime race, so I'm not sure what's going on here.
Your guess is as good as mine, Nether.
It looks a bit unusual, so this will be something that I think might have to be addressed. Glenn Miles has been disqualified already, so I'm not sure what he's done to warrant being disqualified.
Well, it could be one of these ISI-based sims. If the rules are set to that way, it's you'll actually get disqualified if you don't have your headlights on at night. So we're getting
been disqualified as well. So this is not looking very, very good. So something's going on here, and I dare say they're going to have to force a restart. Yeah, something's not right with whatever the system has been programmed as, and a number of drivers have been disqualified as well as the and you can see it there. Something's not right at all. So I think we're probably going to just leave this for a few minutes, and we'll just see the cars just tour around. But they're going to have to, surely they're going to have to force a server restart here, or something's not entirely right. We're not exactly sure, apart from the fact we know that the night sky in Darwin doesn't look like this. But I can imagine you're probably right, Hans. It's got something to do with the drivers not using their headlights, and you can see just by the way that Brendan Ross is going around side to side that this is probably going to definitely facilitate a restart, I'd imagine, or a change.
Is he going to do a J-turn? Look at that. Oh, he had to use plenty of road and then the grass, but here we go. Server restart potentially.
Yep, so we're just going to take a few moments here. I think what we'll do is we'll just go back to this screen here for a few moments time. We'll wait for the server to get itself in order. We will take a short break and we'll come back when the issues have been resolved. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the AMS Oz Super 2, everybody. We're just in a little bit of a holding pattern here at the moment. The reason that the track looked the way that it did and why everybody was getting the penalties was because they decided to use the default track time to set the track up for the race, and the default track time happened to be 2 a.m. instead of somewhere in the afternoon. So they're just in the process of getting that rectified at the moment and resetting the grid. So the good news is everybody's back in the server. It's just a matter of waiting for them all to be positioned in their correct grid positions. We'll get everybody back out and we'll get back underway again. So I think they normally have to do this in the warm-up session, but they're just getting the order correct so they can process it in one foul swoop, and then away we will go. So I guess this gives us a little bit of a brief moment to talk a bit about this track. We spoke a bit about it at the beginning of the broadcast. It's been around in some form or another since 1986, but it really only sort of come to be as we know it with the supercars since 1998. And there's been plenty of action at this particular track. It's very, very hot, very, very dusty. I mean, it's got the drag strip there on the right-hand side, as you can see on the broadcast picture. That is an Andra drag strip, so it does host drag racing. There's a nearby dirt track and a nearby go-kart track as well. So it's a really good little facility up there at Hidden Valley Raceway. Sadly, it's the only facility in the top end, but it certainly is going to produce not only some good racing tonight, but it's produced good racing in the past, in the real life as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. We've seen a lot of ambitious moves, and we've seen some pretty crazy accidents here over the years, which have provided a lot of entertainment to fans and spectators alike. But tonight I think what's going to happen is that we've got a lot of competitive cars, and they're all in a chance to win it. And you never really know in this series because there'll be someone who is the form driver, and then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, it just won't stick together in the qualifying, and then he has to go. And if they're good at passing, it's okay, but you wouldn't have to pass all those cars if you weren't qualifying at the back anyway. So, I mean, passing is a good thing, but you kind of, if you do end up being at the bottom of the circuit, I mean, at the bottom of the grid, you actually have to make all that up. But it's much easier, and it's much easier on the car as well to not do that in the first place as a qualifier up front. But it's going to be interesting how we're going to see if JP Coeurrier can get up the front. We've typically seen him, and Philip Boak as well. So Philip Boak, we didn't quite expect him to be that quite far down the field either.
Yeah, no, we didn't expect him to be near the back end of the top 10. So JP Coeurrier and Phil Boak are going to have a fair workload in this particular race. And just to remember too, it's a different qualifying grid as well for race number 2. So second set of qualifying, it doesn't roll over. It's not progressive grids here. So they've got a chance to redeem themselves for race number 2 with their qualifying, but they're going to have to do it the hard way in race number 1, and that's by working their way from the field all the way up. They're really the only two drivers that are properly out of position with regards to where they qualified, and a lot of the other drivers that we expected to be toward the top end are up that particular pointy end of the field. Good showing from Zach Ross as well, and a good showing from Bailey Hall on debut. So they've had some good solid qualifying as well. So they're good to see what sort of speed that they can come up with, and how they go about mixing it with those sort of. I reckon they're sort of going to be in the midfield battle. So it'll be good to see how they mix in with some of the more seasoned veterans as well. Will Devonish was a little bit sort of unsighted. We didn't see very much of him in the qualifying session, but he's up there as well. He's up there in the top 10 for CRE, and he's, as we showed before on the points graphic, he's third overall in the points. So he's currently ahead of the points leader as well. So set to make some ground there. So not only if Brenton Foley decides to take another race win or finish up there on the podium, if Will Devonish can keep up there as well, those two gentlemen are going to continue to keep chipping away at the points advantage that Phil Boak currently has. And who knows what the likes of JP Coeurrier, Mitchell Hathaway, guys that have already got race wins under their belt, new to AMS Oz, those guys this year. And who knows what they're capable of if they can, Mitchell Hathaway's up there, I think, third or fourth on the grid. If he gets a really, really good start, he's got the potential to motor away. I think as we saw when he drove from the back to the front at Adelaide, he can really get going when he gets a carrot in front of him.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100% right there. Will Devonish, I think he's a little bit more of a better racer than he is a qualifier. And unfortunately, we don't have the grid rolling over to race 2. So that sort of hurts him a little bit. And, I mean, he did sort of fly under the radar, and he is in that sort of top half of the field. So the good thing about that is that what's that going to do? Because he's a better racer, what that's going to mean is that if he can get a good start and off the line, he probably will. He can actually gain a couple of positions there just by being able to put the car on the inside, and he gets right away there. So we're going to see. I mean, Will Devonish. We've sort of seen it's been a bit of an up and down season in terms of we see him now we don't now we do see him, and he's changed from the VF to the ZB, and it's I think Will Devonish, in terms of strategy as well, he's pretty good. But sprint races, not so much strategy. It's more about raw speed and being able to pass cars.
Yeah, it is. Having a look here at Will Devonish's results, he's had 2 disconnects on the season. So he disconnected from Adelaide when he was in a very strong position. He disconnected from the second race at Albert Park, but other than that, he's got 3 podiums to his name, so second and 2/3. He's got 3 fourths and a fifth. So his worst result that he's actually finished a race in is 5th place. So if only those 2 disconnects weren't there, he'd actually have probably at least another 100 odd points to his tally. So he'd be another 100 points closer to Phil Bow. He was actually in position to finish on the podium in Adelaide. I can't recall what happened in that second race at Albert Park, but he was in a very, very strong position with Adelaide to halfway into that race, and then unfortunately his internet decided to let go. Interesting to note too, in terms of the actual podiums and race wins over the season, so if you count a race win as a podium result, having a look here how the podiums have been split, the 95 to 98% of the podiums have been split between Phil Boak, Brenton Foley, Will Devonish, Mitchell Hathaway and Brennan Ross. They're in the top. They're the 5 of the top 5 cars. Then you've got the 3 race wins from JP Coeurrier on the bounce. And then the only other podiums are a 3rd place to Jamie Snow in the first race at Albert Park and a 3rd place to Damon Mulqueen in the second race at Albert Park. They're the only 2 drivers outside of the top 12 that have got a podium to their name. The rest of them all come from either JP Coeurrier, who's currently occupying the 10th place, or all the guys that are in the top 5. So the spread is not really a huge spread compared to some of the other series that we've seen. You take GT3, for example, where we've got 3 guys that are up the front there, but only 8 races, and the podiums are actually quite well split. I think it's probably about 45% of the field has actually got a podium to their name. So actually really, really good strike rate, but then again, it's a slightly lesser numbers in the category than what there is here in AMS Oz Super 2. But the flip side of the argument, it just shows you where the experience is as to where, just based alone on where the podiums and those solid results are. Taking a look as well, likes of Phil Boak, he had his worst result is the 14th place that he finished at the second race at Albert Park. Everywhere else he's been no lower than 7th. They're the only 2 times he hasn't finished on the podium. Foley with 2 disconnects and 6 podiums. His worst result, actually in terms of a race finish, is 6th. Devonish, we spoke about, his worst result in terms of a race finish is 5th. Mitchell Hathaway has a pair of DNFs to his name, but his worst race finish is 3 5th places. Brendan Ross, only the 1 DNF, but his worst results, his 2 worst results are 8th and 11th, and he's got 4 podiums to his name, plus a 4th place finish. So those guys that are at the top end of the field, had they been able to, keep themselves on the road or sort out whatever dramas they had, or, for whatever reason, finish the races, this could be a hell of a lot tighter considering we're closing in on a halfway point.
Yeah, definitely. It could be tighter, but the thing is, it's just showing how inconsistent it's all been. Even the podium getters, they have been quite inconsistent. So what happens with that is that we start to see these really large points margins start to open up. So, I mean, we're not seeing anyone truly run away with the championship. However, there are some quite even and large points margins between each of the place getters, and also people who are further down. So say if they're just finishing top 5, top 10, what's happening is that because we're seeing a lot of DNFs and a lot of disconnects, I mean, these cars are hard to drive, and there's a quite a deep field in terms of the numbers. So that actually compounds the issue further. So even though, yes, it's concentrated in the small group of hands, the problem with that is that they've also been inconsistent. So we're starting to see, that's why we see Devonish up there in 3rd, just by pure consistency.
Well, we're just watching the server admins at the moment moving the drivers around, and it looks like we're just about set and ready to go. So The reason they've taken a little bit of time to do it is because they set a little script on here that moves a few people around, and just reading through the order now, it looks like the order has just been set. They're probably just double checking to make sure everyone's in the right spot, and then they will be advancing the session to the race session, and then we will be underway. So apologies to all the viewers for the delay that has been brought upon us. It's just a little bit of a challenge and a little bit of time consuming to get this all done. We've just been given the word that it's a 60-second turnaround as of about 15 seconds ago before they will advance to the race session, and then the drivers will have approximately 60 seconds to get themselves out onto the grid. So they're all being warned, get the setups in order, get your fuel in order, get yourself ready to race in approximately about 90 seconds from now.
It's a bit like if you were in real life and you're lining up on the dummy grid, it's a bit like the 1 minute board. So it's the same. It's the same equivalent thing for sim racing. But 60 seconds to go. We're going to see everyone's got to load up their setups, and we should hopefully have a race start, which will be good to see.
Yeah, about time we decided to go racing. It's getting on to 9:45 here in the evening for those of you who are watching from outside of Australia or on a different part of Australia that's not the East Coast.
Australian Standard Time.
Correct, Australian Eastern Standard Time. We are hopefully of getting this race in within about 25 minutes of it starting. That's all pending no safety cars. Then we've got another 15-minute qualifying session, and then we're going to skip the second warm-up. That's the verdict. We're going to skip the second warm-up and go straight into the second 21-lap race. So it looks like we are just about ready to go. Engines I can hear are being started, and we'll go over and watch for the cars gridding up. Man on pole, Brenton Foley, due for another race win, or is he? He's got 2 on the board on the season, looking to close the gap down to his teammate. Prime opportunity to do it with his teammate buried well back in the field, bordering on the outskirts of the top 10. Just waiting on the final cars to lock into position here, and then we'll go on the warm-up lap. Alright, warm-up lap finally commencing. Grid order, Brenton Foley, PBF Race Engineering, superb lap, mirrored the time that he did in practice. In actual fact, he improved upon it. Starting alongside Brendan Ross for FCR Motorsport in the Holden. Great job by Brendan Ross. He really needed a good, solid starting slot for this round. Mitchell Hathaway, Race 1 winner in Adelaide, up in P3, his best qualifying effort of the season to date. Jinx for JP Simshed. We didn't expect Jinx to be up this high, so good result for Jinx. They've decided to ditch the chrome livery on that car in favour of something that's a little more darker. Will Devonish, 5th place for CRE Motorsport. Zach Ross on, I believe, on his second race or so for him. He's partnered with in Top Gear Racing Garage with Steve Burko in the mother Ford FGX Falcon. Phil Boak down in 7th place, so in a little bit of a jam. You have to see how he goes with getting through that field. Turmo in the Castrol Racing Nissan, the 715. JP Coeurrier for JP Simshed out of P9, and Billy Dougal-Salong is actually on the road just ahead of him in P10, but that's not going to be an issue when they come around to grid up. Bailey Hall on debut, good starting result for him in the ZB Commodore, the Tank Sim Racing team out of P11, alongside Cam Rutledge in the second of the CRE Motorsport cars. Steve Burko, having been out-qualified by his teammate Zach, is occupying 13th. Back to Ricky Slick for FCR in 14th. Rounding out the rest of the field, got Brownie for Cracker Racing Team and his teammate Cracker from Cracker Racing Team occupying the same row of the grid. Rodian's PBF Academy Holden, so it's probably his best result of the season. Back to the aptly named Rowan Atkinson out of set 18th. Glenn Miles, Gary Neville and Dwayne Davies starting off the back row of the grid. Drivers now lining up here. 21 laps ahead of us. Is it going to be triumph or turmoil? Whatever the case, it's going to be rattle in the top end, or rattle and rumble of V8 supercar power. get a relatively good view of the lights here if we can see them from where they are. Just still waiting on the green flag at the back to be shown. Probably a couple of drivers just a little bit short of their grid box. You can see Jinx there on far right. He's miles off of his grid slot. A couple of them are just trying to roll into position here. Might see if we can get a view from the back, but looks like we might be ready to go. And here we go. Supercars in the top end. Racing. Great launch, Brenton Foley. Brenton Ross bogged it down. Here's the straight, and there's also a little bit of shenanigans going on there. Looks like Will Devonish might have had a little bit of a moment. Manages to keep it pointing the right way, but the whole shot goes to Brenton Foley uncomfortably. Look at Jinx. Jinx has made a great move. He's up to P2 already around Mitchell Hathaway and the slow starting Brendan Ross.
There's another car off on the on turn one there. That might be Billy Douglas Salonga, the second of the HDS cars, but Brenton Foley's actually gotten a ripper start, so he's a couple of car lengths up on Jinx, and Jinx another good start as well. He managed to consolidate a good qualifying.
Yeah, certainly did. He got all the way from P4 to P2 in just in the front straightaway. Mitchell Hathaway already having a look on the inside. Jinx down to hairpin. Look at Phil Boak. Phil Boak's made his way up to 4th already on the road. Great job from Phil Boak starting P7. Already picked off the 3 cars that he needs. So he's wasting absolutely no time whatsoever.
Will Devonish has gone with him, incidentally. So Phil Boak is a bit of the tow truck here. If you follow him, you're sure to get a few places.
Yeah, you sure are. So he's really trying to clear away from Will Devonish, and Brendan Ross has slipped all the way back behind. That's Will Devonish at the moment. So he's had a horrible start, Brendan Ross, all the way down to 6th place. Good consolidated result so far from Zach up in P7. Billy Douglas Salonga, as you said, he was actually there in 10th place. So he's still on 10th place. JP Coeurrier having gone backwards all the way down to P12 currently at the moment.
Yeah, shocker run for JP Coeurrier in this opening lap, but let's see if he can get back up there. But maybe his pace is more suited to endurance racing than it is to sprint racing. However, we did see he was doing good at Winton. But Phil Boak now is trying to apply some pressure to Mitch Hathaway, our Adelaide winner.
Down to the hairpin they go for the second time. Not far enough to make a challenge there, although Zach's really trying to size up Brendan Ross here as well as we join that battle over 6th and 7th place. So Zach having a very, very good start. Consolidating results, and we've already lost Cracker from this race as well. So first retirement, and Dwayne Davies as well. So both those drivers have dropped off the board. So maybe involved in a scuffle at the beginning of this race. But Brendan Ross now coming under maximum pressure with FGR Falcon, and who's that's gone off there? That's Phil Boak.
That's Phil Boak. He's in the fence, so he's oversteered a lot there. And that's going to kill his run onto the main straight. So he's going to get past. He's going to lose a couple spots here into turn 1. And there's nothing you can do about that. Oh, they're trying to move over on him. We're going to get the replay. Stephen, talk us through what's happened.
Yeah, so Phil Boak's just a bit wide there off the line. You can see he decided to try and cut it in late and then just caught the grass. That's what it was. He just didn't get off the ripple strip in quick enough fashion, and he was badly hurt. He was badly freight trained by Brendan Ross and Zach. In actual fact, Brendan Ross managed to hang on to the move there.
So, actually, Phil Boak could have... Ordinarily, when we see side-to-side contact like that, it causes damage to the spools in the diff. Oh, it's on for young and old here. We've got Phil Boak is coming under severe attack from Brendan Ross, and he's trying to hassle the back of Zach as well in the other FGX Falcon. But it's pretty wild in these opening stages. Oh, Brendan Ross, he thought about the move there. And let's see what the run is like onto the main straight. They're all darting every which way at the moment. And Turmo is just back there and he's laughing almost. So if any of these blokes fire each other off at turn 1, Turmo is going to be pretty happy with that in the Ultima.
Inside move looking here by Phil Boak on Zach. And he got alongside there as well.
Wheel
Contact! And bumped again. So that was probably a little bit ambitious there from Phil Boak. He decided to try and stick his nose in to see if Zach was going to give him some space. We didn't quite get far enough alongside and became a little bit of a pinball there for a few moments to Phil Boak. Zach defending down the inside here at turn number 5.
Oh, Turmo's around. Turmo's around at the end of that. So
he was.
Oh, he's at the end of that pack, but now he's no longer at the end of that pack, unfortunately. So Turmo, we ordinarily see that his race performance is quite good, but unfortunately not so tonight. Disastrous opening 4 laps for Turmo.
Yeah, so he's slipped all the way down the order there. Let's see if we can get a replay. He was sizing up what was going on ahead here, and it looks like he might have just done it all on his own. Actually, too much curb. too much inside curb and got on the gas a little bit too early, and rear end overtakes front end, and you get the pendulum effect, and you get the idea, and there's the end result.
Really interesting to see that Phil Boak, unfortunately, has been a bit of a pinball, like you said, but he's been going into the wall, he's been going into other cars, and not all of that is his fault, by the way. But the problem is when you actually have a bit of a moment like that, you're trying to get back into your rhythm, and unfortunately, in the haste of trying to get back up to speed again, you sort of do, these mistakes start to creep in because you're frustrated, you're angry at yourself, and you're trying to actually make up. I mean, if you lose a tenth of a second on track, it takes quite a long time to actually get that back again, unless you've got a severe speed disadvantage the other cars have a severe
Oh, now
speed
Phil Boak's
disadvantage.
slow. I just noticed he was having all sorts of dramas there. He was dropping down the timing screens like he was a lead weight for a moment. He was up there with Brennan Ross and Zach, and then all of a sudden he has slipped right down the order. We'll see if we can find out what's happened here. So down at turn 5 again. He's done the same thing Turmo did, just not as severe. In actual fact, he hampered Brendan Ross's run on Zach as well. So he managed to get back on track safely, but didn't lose as many places, but still pays the penalty. Turn 5 bites again, second consecutive lap.
So that's disastrous for our championship leader.
He's actually found himself behind Ricky Slick as well now, has Phil Boak. And Ricky's not going to make this easy for him, I can guarantee you that much. And then just ahead of Ricky Slick is Bailey Hall, who's now finds himself inside the top 10 on debut in the Tank Sim racing car. A good result for him so far if he can keep this going. The first 5 laps have literally flown past. Our race leader has bolted. Foley, his best lap is a 1 minute 5.710. His last lap around was a 5.9, and he's got a comfortable, what's that there? A comfortable 1.6 second advantage over Jinx at the moment.
But look who's up in third place. That's Will Devonish. I've commented that he's a good racer, and clearly he's showing that in the sprint racing format as well.
And look who he's dragging with him as well. He's dragging Mitchell Hathaway with him too. So maybe these two got to work together a little bit, see if they can get onto the back of Jinx, but then they're going to make it a 3-way fight for the remaining 2 spots on the podium. They're going to be relying on Foley to make a bit of a mistake, but at the moment he's in the zone. There's Mr. Foley.
Foley's in the box seat to capitalise here, as we see Will Devonish. He runs a little bit wide there. Hopefully he doesn't come under attack from Mitch Hathaway, because if these two get into a battle, that's definitely going to cruel their chances of getting up to the rear bar of the Jinx ZB Commodore.
JP Coeurrier's found himself back inside the top 10 now. He's haven't got past Bailey Hall, so having gone a little bit backwards at the start there, he's now found his way back up to about where he started in 9th place, and chasing down Billy Dougal Salonga, or BDS as he's commonly referred to here by the broadcast team.
Phil Boak, incidentally, has gotten past Richard Slick III, so Ricky Slick back to 12th there.
He hasn't wasted any time in trying to get back into the top 10 as Phil Boak. He reminds me a little bit of what happened to young, just trying to remember the name of the driver it was, Reith McCarthy at the most recent round at Winton, the young 15-year-old getting his first win in Formula V's, but his third race, he was, it was like a roller coaster for him. He started on the pole, he bogged the start down, he went back to 10th, he'd worked his way all the way back up to 5th, had a mistake, went back down to 8th, and then ultimately finished 6th. So at the moment that seems to be a similar sort of thing to what Phil Boak is going through right now, having started on a high, started out of P7, worked his way all the way up, made a mistake, gone all the way back, and now he's trying to work his way back forward again.
Yeah, the adrenaline running, it doesn't make for the best decision-making capabilities, unfortunately, but the important thing is that to actually get back into your rhythm and relax a little bit, as hard as that is, that's what you need to do so you can actually make some speed up. But we're just seeing Brendan Ross there, he's taking a lot of curb, he's trying to assault the back of the Top Gear Racing FGX Mother Falcon, driven by Zach Ross, and he's out in the weeds there, he's not coming back from there, and he's going to come under attack from Steve Burko. So Phil Boak also is trying to harass the back of Bailey Hall. So, Steve Burko is off as well. So everyone's darting every which way here. And he looks like he's lost the position there. So that's 1 position back for Steve Burko, 1 up for Billy Dougal Salonga.
There might be an exchange here though as they come down the front straightaway. Steve Burko's probably going to take a look here, and who else is having a look? JP Coeurrier's thinking, well, you guys are going to go through. I'm going to try and buy into. Oh, and there's a bit of a contact there as well. I think that's JP Coeurrier for sure. Yes, it is.
And he's redressed that, so that's a good move there.
Yeah, that's a smart
But
move.
he might have steering damage because that might have been wheel-to-wheel contact.
Let's have a see if we can pick that one up because that was a little bit late on the challenge. On board.
Yeah, so last of the late breakers there, unfortunately. So he just tagged the rear left quarter of Billy Douglas Salonga, but thankfully no harm, no foul. He didn't spin, and he gave that position back as it should be.
Yeah, he did the right thing there, did JP Coeurrier. Got it over and done with and addressed as quickly and efficiently as he possibly could. Just looking to see what his lap times are like at the moment. Not terrible. His first sector was a 24.0, obviously because he did have to surrender that place. But he's a little bit slow at the moment.
Bit.
Yeah, he's maybe trying to get into the pits, I think. Yeah, he is.
And that could have been a disaster with Phil Boak as well. So Phil Boak, he's actually fallen off the back of Ballyhall a little bit. Oh, there might be a serious issue here.
Yeah, I think he's having some trouble steering in that car as well. I don't think the car particularly wants to turn either left or right in any great fashion. We struggled there to try and get it to turn to the left in the very sharp pit entry, so I dare say he's coming in for some damage repair. So disaster for JP Coeurrier. Meanwhile, we just cut to Cam Rutledge, and he's harassing the back of, who's that he's got there, Brownie. Now, Cam sort of started a little bit further up there, and we've lost Glenn Miles just in the last couple of laps as well. So it's our third DNF out of 21, so not a bad strike ratio in terms of drivers that have not been able or will not see the checkered flag in this particular race. But still, there's battles all the way up and down the field. So these two are locked together for 13th and 14th place and going at it hammer and tongs. We move a bit further forward. So Turmo's still recovering from that spin a few laps ago. Not troubling the apex too much there at turn 11. Although much better line through the final couple of corners here. And then look at the gap. It's daylight between him and Ricky Slick. Bailey Hall still inside the top 10 as well. If we go a bit further up the field, so Brendan Ross has now has managed to get away from this battle, Steve Burko. And Steve Burko's decided I'm either going to have a passing move here on Billy Douglas Salonga, or we're going to play swapsies, because here they go up through 3 and 4, and now the right-hander at 5, and side by side, give each other plenty of space. Well, that's a good, fair racing. Burko last of the late breakers down the inside. So they've been side by side for the better part of a half a lap nearly now. BDS thinks, no, I'm not going to send this up the inside here at 7. I'm just going to slot back in and maybe I'll have another go down the straight. Burko's defending heavily here under maximum attack. Wide of the apex there as well. BDS has a little bit of a look down the inside and Burko says, I'll have to give you some space there.
Oh, there might have been a little bit of a touch there, but no harm, no foul, because they've all actually managed to get on the main straight now. But Brandon Ross, that's what he needs to see, because he's getting a large gap onto this. But also, to the same token, Phil Boak, that's what he also wants to see, because he needs to start his resurgence up the field.
Yeah, he sure does. If these guys keep rat-a-tat-tatting on each other's back and front bumpers, then that'll give Phil Boak drag Phil Boak even closer to this pair. We'll stay with them and see how we go up through turn 5 this time around. Burko manages to hold off the advances of Billy Douglas Salonga this time around. So good exchange between those two for the first half of the previous lap. It's not over yet.
We might see that there's a bit more Morse code here being transmitted front to rear bar.
I'm just keeping an eye as well here, Hans, on our third place man, Will Devonshire, in a minute, because he's still starting to make inroads into Jinx's advantage. And as we look here, Burko loses out on 7th place this time around to Billy Douglas Salonga. So opportunistic pass. Can the Commodore driver get away from the Falcon driver? They've got some lap traffic in between in the form of 17th place Rowan Atkinson. And then Brendan Ross has already managed to get past the lap traffic. Burko's going to have a look down the outside here. Goes deep. Goes very, very, very deep. That's way too deep. He's going to surrender not only 7th place, but he's also going to cough up 8th place to Phil Boak quite quickly. Oh, in actual fact, Boak, he just managed to get onto the circuit ahead of Burko, so he probably won't be happy with the rejoin there, but nonetheless, he's come out ahead of him. Hopefully, Boak can just drive away from him now, or either that, Steve Burko's going to be trying to hang on to the back of him and ride his coattails all the way back up to the back of BDS again.
Oh, he's late braking there again, so he's trying to V the corner as much as he can. But wow, we saw We caught it right on camera there. He just went steaming off the road at a rate of knots and couldn't arrest the speed on that. So had to rely on the dirt and the grass to arrest the speed. And unfortunately, he managed to lose a spot in the process.
Good job by Atkinson in the Scuderia Alitalia car, getting out of the way there. Thinking about a move down the inside with Steve Burko.
Now, this is what we not need to see here, because if Burko just rides the coattails, like you said, of Phil Boak, then I think they will get up to Billy Dougal-Salonga, and I think that will actually serve him better than trying to overtake, I mean, in the long term, that is.
Yes, Phil Boak, I think, is cleared away now. He'll be making inroads into BDS as quickly as he can. Meanwhile, we've lost Bailey Hall out of this race as well. So he was inside the top 10 on debut. He was doing very, very nicely until that little moment, whatever's happened to him, to cause him to have his DNF. We're going to just go forward and pick up the battle here for second place, because this is on like Donkey Kong at the moment, as they say in the classics. Will Devonish has been finding time hand over fist over Jinx in the last few laps. Last time around, they were pretty well matched in terms of lap time, but this time around, I think Jinx has made a mistake somewhere. Lap times as they come across the lap this time around are 6 dead for Devonish, and it's a 6.5 for Jinx. So only 6 laps remaining in this, 7 laps remaining in this race. Got to start thinking about making moves. Foley's cleared off, or as to be politely, we're in the top end, we should say, he's buggered off. To the tune of about 5 seconds over, or 5.5 seconds over this pair.
Interesting to see that Will Devonish has actually gapped Mitch.
Here he goes.
in the process.
Down the inside.
Oh, that was brave. That was brave, but he got far enough up there, so Jinx might be a little bit dark about that, but that was a fair move. Fair bump play on.
Yep, I would agree with that. Fair bump play on. Sent it, as Foley would like to say. If you actually have to see Brenton Foley's DRM car in the ARW series on Wednesday nights, it's the PBF Send It Ford Capri. Despite the fact he drives a Commodore, and this he's decided to pick up the reins of a Ford Capri. And the Send It stands for a whole bunch of weird things to do with stairs, excited noises, DRM International Team, I think is what it stands for. But literally, Devonish sent it down at turn 5 there and made it stick. So up into P2.
It's all about licking the stamp and sending it, isn't it, Steve?
Sure is. They're going to get some lap traffic in the form of Rhodey and Gary Neville in the next couple of corners. Rhodey's actually not doing too badly.
That was Brendan Ross. He's gone into the fence. And he's lost a bonnet and a wheel in the process. So bye-bye wheel. The wheel's parted company.
Yeah, so where is Brendan Ross? He was in... No, it's not Brendan Ross.
So it might be... Who would that then? That would be Gary Neville, incidentally.
Yeah, Gary
so
Neville.
Gary Neville, not Brendan Ross. I apologise for Brendan Ross fans out there. So we've got the replay. Brendan Ross.
Yep.
Sorry, not Brendan Ross. Gary Neville. They're similar cars, but Gary Neville, look at that. Oh, he's just gone into the tyre bank very hard, and he's lost 2 wheels off it.
Yeah, we just had a bit of an issue picking up the replay for a minute there, but the car basically on the change of direction just veered hard left into that Armco fence.
Brought a little bit of curb there, but incidentally, we've got JP Coeurrier and Rowan Atkinson a lap down, and what a change of fortunes for JP Coeurrier.
Yeah, he's gone a lap down as a result of having to stop to repair the damage, but the important thing for him is he's out there picking up some points, so he's not going to drop any points. He was actually not too far ahead in the point standings from Billy Dougal-Salonga. If I have a look at the...
Sorry, Steve, he's trying to make a move on Rhodey here. He showed the nose, but let's see if he can do it into turn number 6. The blue flag's being shown as well, so that's actually Billy Dougal-Salonga, I believe. They're coming up on the back of this battle.
These two are both going to be getting the blue flags, so they're fighting hard over what is 14th and 15th place, so they're entitled to have the fight, but at the same time, there's the lights. You can see them flashing. BDS wants to get past. He's going to have to do it probably down the straight. I think probably just better off just to bide the time here. They both know that they have to let him past. In actual fact, Rhodey's let JP through, and he lets BDS through as well now, so he's probably given up the fight a bit easy there, Rhodey, I would suggest.
Yeah, but the worry about that was actually BDS. He was just like, oh, no, we've got a PBF Academy car stopped in front of me. So I don't think he was quite expecting that. But the good thing is BDS is now past, and he can actually try and catch up to Brendan Ross. But it's going to be about a 5-second margin up to Rossi. So I don't think he's going to get there, but JP Coeurrier is trying to. I think he's drawing back a little bit. He's trying to. He wants to keep that battle.
I've just noticed we've lost Phil Boak from this race as well, so the points leader is out. So while we were talking about JP Coeurrier, he's had an issue somewhere, so he's not going to score any points whatsoever. So disaster for the championship leader, and he's going to lose 150 points to somebody. At this rate, he's going to lose it to his teammate. So that's probably a worst case scenario for Phil Boak. So he retired from the race a lap ago. So I'm not sure what has happened to him there. Maybe suffered a similar fate to some of the other cars with either making a mistake or cars veering into some of the walls around here. And another one has gone as well. So we're starting to lose them like flies are being swatted with a fly swat at the moment. So losing drivers in quick succession. So that now makes seven.
So that's 1/3 of our field gone. So that's not too bad. It's all been happening in the last couple of laps or so.
But this is where the real battle is at for the last two steps on the rostrum. Devonish and Jinx. Jinx flying the flag for JP Simshed and Jinx shifters at the moment. And he's only got 2 and a bit laps to go. Foley, I think, has probably buttoned it off a little bit. His last sector time was a 23.8 through Sector 1 for Brenton Foley. And coming through Sector 2, he's probably just maintained that gap, I think, compared to what the other drivers normally do. And indeed he has. He's actually done... in fact, it looks like he got a track violation through Sector 2 on this particular occasion as well, did Foley. So he's really just in cruise control at the moment. Got a comfortable margin out in front. There he is, bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Jinx looking at a move here. On the brakes, just a little touch later than Devonish, trying to outfox him here. In actual fact, gets his nose in there. Little bit of contact.
Slight contact there. So fair blunt play on because he didn't get an advantage from it, so it's all right. But let's see if Jinx can fire it down the inside at turn 5. No, not quite. So he's not quite far enough, but he's very close to the rear bar of Will Devonish. So this has been a cracking battle, hasn't it, Steve?
Yeah, this has certainly been the battle that we've needed to keep our eye on. Devonish hasn't been able to motor away from Jinx like he did when he was motoring up to the back of him. But he's just sort of hanging on here, so maybe used a little bit too much of the tyre life early on to play catch-up. And maybe see the result there, just missing the apex there. Jinx down the inside! No!
That's like the Ambrose Scaife move, and he's going to go to the Andrew drag strip there, and he actually collected the fence.
He's on fire.
That's a massive glitch from the circuit, and they better get the medical teams there because that's... race control. Disqualified Jinx. So that's very unceremonious, isn't it?
No, it certainly is. So,
that's the end of the practice battle, isn't it? That's really regrettable to see, but I think that, the track, the way it was made, you can't actually go onto that little drag strip. Actually, it's like an invisible wall there, and it just fired him up into the air, and the car was on fire, and, we can thank Stenny for that. But otherwise, it's a good track.
Sure is. Well, this is our race leader, Brenton Foley, so motored away quite comfortably from the pole. It's going to mean a 3rd race win for him this season, and in the end, going to be quite comfortable over Will Devonish. So, very, very easy 150 points, and we can't call it a Sunday drive because it's not Sunday, but he's going to take another race win. Great job for Brenton Foley, PBF Race Engineering, and 150 points towards Championship Challenge. Will Devonish comes home with a strong 2nd. Mitchell Hathaway is going to finish here in 3rd place, and a great result for Zach too. He's going to end up 4th place, the leading Falcon runner for Top Gear Racing. Great job, having only competed a handful of races in the series. Brendan Ross is going to come home in P5, so that's a good solid result for Brendan Ross. It's still plenty of time left in this championship. Billy Douglas-Salonga is going to come home for 6th place. Steve Burko makes it both Top Gear Racing Falcons inside the top 10. 8th to Ricky Slick. 9th to Turmo, having recovered from that spin. Probably just needed to just keep his nose clean and keep going. And JP Coeurrier, despite being a lap down, actually gets inside the top 10. And then the last couple of drivers were Rutledge, Rohde and Atkinson to complete this race. plenty of burnouts going on down the bottom end of the circuit, and plenty from our race lead and race victor as well, Brenton Foley, who loves to get the tail out.
Yeah, those tyres definitely aren't going to be used again. They're not going to go to the PBF pile of race used tyres for practice sessions and testing. But yeah, a very nice smoke show there. And Ricky Slick is joining in on the action as well. So everyone's pretty happy with their performance. It's like everyone's won something. Everyone's won something. That's why they're all doing burnouts.
Everybody loves a little something, so we'll leave them alone for the time being. We're going to go and take a short break while it's in between sessions, and we'll be back with qualifying for race 2 very, very shortly. So in between race sessions, we've managed to grab our top 3 drivers, and Hans has them all in the pit lane right now.
Thanks, Steve. I'm just here with the race winner, Brent Foley. Brenton, good to see you back in the winner's circle, mate.
Yeah, it's been a little while, a bit too long for my liking, especially in this series. But this is I'm a big fan of this track. I loved it last year. I love it this year. So I'm happy to be up the front in this one.
So with the 5-second margin up front, just button it down on the butting it off at the end of the race and not trying to make too many mistakes there.
Inside the helmet, it was a little bit more stressful. I thought I was a lot tighter on fuel. So in the middle of the race, I actually saved for a couple of laps. I'm going to put a few extra in, but I managed to cross the line with half a lap left. So thankfully, it was all good. But yeah, next time I'll just be a bit more careful of that one.
Yeah, a bit of fuel strategy there, but no, good performance and leading from the lights to the flag. Well done, mate.
Thanks very much.
Second place goes to Will Devonish, and Will, that was a very intense battle and an unfortunate end for Jinx there.
Yeah, it was quite weird what happened to him, but yeah, it was shaping up to be, I think, a drag towards the end. So a bit of a shame it happened, but really good race though.
Now, I commented before the start of the race that Will Devonish is actually quite a good racer, and can we see a bit more in qualifying for the next race?
I know myself, I've got another probably 3/10 in it, so it wouldn't actually move me too much up the grid, but the car itself's a really good race car. There was points I was pulling Foley back, so hopefully race 2 I can make some tweaks and
Good stuff.
get it over the line.
Hopefully, we can see a good battle in race 2 as well. And on to our third place getter, Mitch Hathaway. And Mitch, the Red Sea parted for you when you saw Jinx just go flying into the heavens.
Yeah, Jinx was the last person I was expecting it to be, so I just got very lucky, let's be honest.
And also good to see you back on the podium, especially after having a win at Adelaide and unfortunately a very up and down sort of season so far.
Yeah, it has been like that, but it's good to keep near Devonish, so see what we can do. It's going to be a good battle for the rest of the season with him and Rossi, so yeah, look forward to it.
It's a bit unfortunate we don't have the rolling grid format.
Yeah, unfortunately, it'd be nice to see it in future sprint race series nights. So yeah, it is what it is. See what we can do for qualifying again.
All right. Thank you for your time, Mitch, and thank you for your time, Brenton and Will. And congratulations to our top three place getters, Brendan Foley, Will Devonish, and Mitch Hathaway. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Back
you.
to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Hans. We'll let the top three run along and get themselves ready for the second qualifying session for the second race of tonight's proceedings. Just getting the points standings in order just to see the swings and roundabouts here. So there's only really two major talking points that have come out of that. That's the amount of points, if I can get my headset sorted, the amount of points that Phil Boak has lost to his championship rivals behind as a result of tonight's DNF in race number 1. So he lost 150 points to Brenton Foley, so that championship advantage has shrunk now to 204 points. You get 150 points for a sprint race win. Will Devonish has taken a further 138 out of him by virtue of finishing in second place, so he stays third in the championship, but he doesn't make any more inroads onto Foley, but he does make inroads into Boak. So he's 321 adrift of the man who leads this point standings at the moment. The only real major change position-wise is between Billy Dougal-Salonga and JP Coeurrier after race 1. So that's actually a 24-point swing. So Coeurrier led BDS by approximately 12 points coming into tonight's proceedings, and by finishing in 10th place and going a lap down actually, and then BDS finishing up there in 6th place, he actually outscores him by 24 points total. You end up getting, what is it here? If we look through the standings, you get 102 points for a 6th place finish, and you get 78 for a 10th place finish. So there's your 24 point swing right there. So apart from that, the top 10 is largely unchanged apart from the swap of positions between BDS and JP Coeurrier. Looks like we are getting ready to go racing around the circuit rather, for qualifying 2 for race 2 this evening. And it doesn't look like there's any real movement in the pit lane just yet, so another 4 laps on the board, or 2 flying laps. And who have we got moving in the lane at the moment? We can hear some engines rumbling, and this is the aptly named Rowan Atkinson is deciding to take to the pit lane, and it looks like Turmo coming out the back there as well. Just without trackside cameras, it's a bit hard to see. It certainly looks like the Scuderia Alitalia Falcon, followed by the Castrol Racing Nissan, and another driver moving in the lane there as well, getting in behind the rest of the field. So a couple of drivers less in the server this time around, so only 18, so still a few more to arrive. And green light goes on at the end of pit lane, and indeed it's Atkinson, it's Turmo, and one of the CRE cars. And just looking down the order, that happens to be Cam Rutledge, who is out on the circuit at the moment. Oh, and Atkinson's probably gone deep. And I believe, Hans, you're having a look at some of the commentary and comments that are being broadcast here. So what are you seeing that you're giggling away like a teapot there for?
I was actually giggling away at Rowan Atkinson going off the road in the warm-up. So that was pretty amusing. He almost thought that there was a bit of an extension on the runway there, and the old FGX rear wing would flip the other way around and send him up in the air, up and away. Brought to you by Alitalia.
Yes, the national airline of Italy. Well, we're just going to see if we can cycle round to pick up Turmo, because he is the man who is at the head of the queue, And in actual fact, he was the man who set the initial benchmark in qualifying 1, which was bettered rather quickly. He was in the minute 6s. So let's see if he can improve upon the best time that he set in qualifying 1. Let's see how far he can get up the order here. So on the drag strip, not literally, next door to the drag strip, this 1.1 kilometre long front straight, one of the longest straights on the calendar. Back through the gearbox, treating it like it's a single apex corner there, or for the majority of it. Some drivers will treat that as a multiple apex corner, but you've got to be careful that another driver doesn't stick their nose up the inside of you and nudge you wide. Up through the roller coaster in the valley, 3, 4, or 2, 3 and 4, back a cog for 5, up the gearbox to 3rd, and then back another cog down to 2nd gear for the turn 6 hairpin. On the gas again to the right-hander at 7. And now she starts to become a bit of a roller coaster again. Up and over the rise, up the gearbox, down the gearbox, pick the apex. Nice line there. Stay to the left, over to the right, keep it right, pick the apex on the left, pick the apex on the right, pick the apex on the left, extra curb on the right, didn't use all of it, and now back up the gearbox again. And the time to be set this time around for Turmo to begin proceedings is a minute 6.8. So he's sort of about where he was in qualifying 1. And see what he can do to improve. Cam Rutledge, really no major improvement that time around. Rowan Atkinson comes across the line as well. Sets a time that's really not truly representative of what what we expect him to be capable of. And Dwayne Davies has just emerged from the pit garage and is getting himself sorted for the first flying laps of his qualifying number 2. Very quiet opening stanza in qualifying. Still plenty of drivers yet to get out there, but I guess everyone's got time to waste. As we saw from Phil Boak, he left it right till the last minute, but you don't want to be leaving it till the last minute. You put a lot of pressure on yourself, don't you, Hans?
Yeah, that's right. A lot of pressure, but some people seem to thrive on pressure. Meanwhile, Turmo is actually 0.18 of a second up on his best time. So we might see him get a little bit lower in 6s, might be 106.7 potentially. We'll see him come across the line for his final flying lap. So a 106.6, 106.624 for Turmo. But that's still not quite representative of the pace. But we might see Cam Rutledge. Has he been able to better his PB? Yes, he has, but with a 107.37. And Rowan Atkinson, he's on his final flying lap now. And he's going to be above 110 here. So that's 1 minute 10.184. Zach has gone out, and D2, Dwayne Davies, is out as well. So he's starting his first flying lap. He's coming into turn 1, and he is... not quite treating it like a double apex, but he's not hugging the inside of the curb. So he's more like a constant radius corner. And he's coming up through the roller coaster section now. And the car wiggles a little bit. Oh, that's very good. He's going to be 1/100th of a second up on Turmo. And into the short chute into turn 6 now. And coming out of turn 6. Good drive there. So the car's got a bit better balance than I would have thought. And turn 7. Yeah, so the car is well balanced. So Dwayne, he's actually driving the car quite well, quite straight. But unfortunately, although it looked good, he actually lost 2 or 3/10 of a second there. So now he's behind Turmo's benchmark by 0.292 of a second. And coming up onto the main straight now. A little bit of dirt there. Trying to keep the car as straight as possible for the drag strip section. And across the line. So that's a 106.9. But off we go again on his second flying lap. You see the flames belching from the exhausts as we switch to Billy Dugas-Salonga. He's about to start his out lap with 9 minutes and 30 seconds remaining in this session.
A steady stream of drivers starting to emerge from the pit lane. Have a look at Zach. Good starting time through Sector 1. 4/10 and change up on Turmo's time. Good strong result from Zach in the opening race, leading FGX Falcon and the Top Gear stable. Good to see both the FGX cars inside, or very firmly inside the top 10. Plenty of curb there at turn 11, 12 as well.
we'll see how that goes because he actually managed to get a little bit more time in that second sector, but not quite as much as the first sector. Let's see what his third sector is like. Can he stitch it all together? This is his first flying lap. Zach, he finished 4th in the previous race.
Good time.
And wow, well done. 105.849. So he's within the 106 bracket. Now let's see if he can better that on his second flying lap. He's going to take it like a double apex. So he comes back down narrow, tries to straighten out the corner. Bit of wheel spin there, bit of sliding. He's trying to straighten it up for the roller coaster section. Now up through the gears, up into 5th gear now. He's trying to straighten it out. Flames belching from the exhaust again. So he's pretty much bang on the money. He's pretty much bang on what he did in the first flying lap. So that's 1/100th of a second. And yeah, so good drive out of turn 6 as well. Really didn't use all the track. He didn't use all the exit there. He didn't get to the exit curb. So let's see what his second sector split looks like. So that's 0.111 up and takes a lot of curb there again. So that line might be working for him, but he takes a lot of grass there and he's sliding a lot. So that might have crueled his chances. And takes a lot of curb there again. Ooh, bit of sliding. So maybe the tyres are a bit too hot now and it's not performing quite as well. But we'll see what he does across the line. Very, very slidey. So that's a 106.3. So that's his benchmark lap, 105.849. And Billy Dougal-Salonga, he's a bit off the pace as well. So that's his first flying lap. He's got another flying lap to go, another hot lap. Into the drag strip section now, past the pit lane entry and underneath some of the light gantries there. And he's not in the 5s. He's 106.59. And let's see how he treats the first corner. And oh, he's taking it very much like a double apex there. So he's trying to V the corner as much as possible. Trying to get on the power in these high horsepower cars. Now approaching the first sector split at this 3.0 kilometre circuit. And he's down about 1/4 of a second on Zach. Zach, pretty impressive performance there. That time is definitely going to hang tough. Steve Burko, incidentally, has just finished all his flying laps and he's just going to make his way back to pit lane.
It's a good lap from Steve Burko there as well. So he's not that far away from BDS's time. It's good to see the Falcons have come to play again. What has been ultimately a Holden-dominated series so far, with all the wins going to Holden vehicles. The Fords really need to turn up. There's not very many of them in the field. There's only about 4 of them. They all need to turn up and start making moves. Jinx, now his first flying lap across the line is good, but it's 1/4 of a second down on the current provisional time with 1 to go. Who have we not seen times from so far? So Devonish is out there at the moment. So too is Mitchell Hathaway, still parked in the garage. Ricky Slick, JP Coeurrier, Brendan Ross, Brenton Foley and Phil Boak. Rhodey has completed his lap, so too Rowan Atkinson, Rutledge, Dwight Davies, Turmo, Burko, Dougal-Salonga on his last one, and so too Jinx. Because I think Billy Dougal-Salonga is actually just in lap now, and yes he is. So he's completed his duration of laps and he's on his way to the pit garage now. Jinx not too far away here. Oh, the car was up on 2 wheels for a few seconds there, probably a lot longer than he'd wanted it to be up there, but he really attacked turn 10 and 11 hard. And
just shows how much grip there is in these cars.
Yeah, sure does. So he was only a 10th away and he goes into P3, so he actually lost a little bit more time through that final sector. Maybe the 2 wheels up in the air just meant he could not get the power down at the right time. So Hathaway, his first flying lap was good enough for P2. His current progress is good enough for P1 if he can keep it going by the smallest of margins. His visit to the rostrum in race number 1 was his 3rd visit of such nature this year. The race win in Adelaide, 3rd place at race 1 at Winton, and 3rd place at race 1 tonight, Hidden Valley, and looking very, very handy at the moment, to the tune of 2.5 tenths nearly up on Zach's time. So set to go into the mid 105s if he can hold it together for just a couple of 100 metres more. Looking at Will Devonish behind as well. Mitchell Hathaway to the top, 2 tenths quicker, and we try and pick up Will Devonish. First flying lap for him is good enough for P3. And I just see in the background the PBF Race Engineering Commodores are getting themselves sorted. I think one of them might be on the runway now, if not the pair of them. Still yet to see times time for Glenn Miles is about to be set. Still yet to see times from Ricky Slick, JP Coeurrier, Brennan Ross, Brenton Foley and Phil Boak. Devonish up on his own PB, but not very far away from the Hathaway time at the moment. Trying to take a late apex through turn 6 here as well. Let's see what that yields. We get down to the second sector split just before we hit turn 10, so just over the rise, kink to the left, and the sector time will come up, and there's nothing in it. He's finding time, but needs to find a touch more. These last few corners are vital. What's his run like onto the front straight? It's not too bad. He left a little bit of margin for error though. Didn't use all the exit curb, but his line allowed him not to use all of the exit curb. And he goes P2. And he maintained that margin pretty much the whole entire way around. So he found time for his own PB, but not enough to displace Hathaway at the top for the time being. Has anybody else got anything in store? Well, this man probably has. I'd put money on it.
Brenton Foley is just about to start his first flying lap. He slides a little bit there. That might hurt his exit and exit speed, and therefore the terminal speed on the main straight.
I think
quite adds up. But time is ticking now, and a race against the clock for Brenton Foley with 2 minutes and a half remaining in this session. And he's taking the constant radius corner there, trying to keep the mid-corner speed up, trying to keep the average speed up. Brenton Foley up through the gears, up through the roller coaster section now. And the car's got a good balance, but he's, look at this. He's only 15 thousandths of a second away. So, yeah, so that's a very close margin. And if he keeps that margin all the way around, he's going to displace Devonish on the front row. But at the moment, it looks like provisional pole to Mitchell Hathaway, unless Brenton Foley has something for him. And like Stephen said, Stephen's not a betting man, but he's willing to put money on it. And he's taken a bit of curb there, but loses a little bit there as well. So he lost about 7/100ths of a second there. But what about his run onto the main straight now? Trying to use every little bit of road, now straighten it up, trying to keep it as close to the fence as possible. And he's going to come across the line for his first flying lap. Oh, look at that.
Where did that come from?
Up. So, yeah, that came in all in the last sector. So perhaps Hathaway didn't do quite a good effort in the last sector. So more in it than we would have expected, actually.
That was a very, very late movement on the time there. He was chasing time, and I thought he'd overdriven it for a few moments just through the last couple of corners. He's found more time again. Look at this. A masterclass driving display. Already done a 105.393. His pole lap in Quali 1 was a 105.324, if I'm not mistaken. So looking to go better than his qualifying lap earlier this evening is Brenton Foley putting on a show. Have a look at the split. 3.4 tenths, if you don't mind. Can he replicate this onto the front straight? Are we going to see a lap that's going to go under 105? If he does, this will be absolutely incredible. It'll be borderline. What on earth has Foley produced? He's done a 105.133, so he lost a little bit of time in that final sector, but still, what a time. Take a bow. I don't think that's going to be beaten with just a few seconds remaining. Who else has yet to set times as we scoot through? I think everybody has actually set some times finally. So, actual fact, I think we've lost Phil Boak out of the session. So he was the driver I was looking for just now, but I've just realised he's actually disappeared from the service. So his championship in this particular round goes from bad to worse. He's going to be off the back of the grid by the looks of things. So second pole for Foley. This time on the front row, it's Hathaway. The front row sitter from the previous race, Brennan Ross, all the way down in 8th. JP Coeurrier, a better qualifying result that time around with his 6th place finish. So Jinx and Coeurrier are going to share row 3 of the grid. And have a look at Zach. Good result for the Top Gear Racing driver in the FGX Falcon. He's up all the way there in 4th place. So same too as Steve Burko, had a good result. He's in the top 10 as well. So a few less drivers in this session than we had in the previous one. But nonetheless, good session. And, well, I think our jaws are on the floor, aren't they? Foley just finding time hand over fist in that particular session. Just in that late after he produced that stunning last sector and went and did it all over again.
Yeah, unfortunately, his next lap around wasn't quite as good because although his first 2 sectors were very good, his last sector wasn't quite as good. He lost about a tenth in that. So I think the theoretical best lap time, it would have been on the cusp of a 104.99, but I think it would be about a 105.03 as his theoretical best lap time. But obviously, if he found a little bit more speed elsewhere, and this is where we're all going to be scratching our heads in propeller headland, trying to figure out where we can get more speed out of the thing, definitely a chance to get into the fours. But maybe next time when we visit Darwin, it will be like that. Perhaps, we don't know.
Perhaps we don't know. It will be the end of, it'll be in this time next year with the sessions going the way that they are. They will be coming back to Darwin. So Foley's going to be looking to see if he can find. I'm sure he'll go and sit down after this and see if he can figure out where exactly he can find that little bit of time to dip into the 104s. Because I mean, we could see that it was almost going to happen. No question about it.
Boki has wheel dramas, incidentally, so no qualifying performance been able to come from him. Thank you to teammate Brendan Foley for saying that in the live stream comments. I've just caught a glimpse of that. Thank you very much. But so Boki is going to come from the back of the grid, and unfortunately, it's going to be he's got his work cut out for him if he wants to maintain his championship lead. Impressive effort, Mitchell Hathaway and Will Devenish. They were separated by the smallest of margins, 500ths of a second between them, and Will Devenish. And we did interview him. He said that the car is a bit better of a race car than it is a qualifying car. So if he's running the same setup, that is some pretty impressive speed, wouldn't you say, Steve? And that would definitely serve him well in terms of being a little bit more stable. He can produce that lap in, lap out, and maybe the tire wear wouldn't be so bad. But Zach in fourth, also a very impressive effort. He's flying the flag for Henry Ford's men, and he's trying to even up a lopsided scoreboard that's in favour of the general at the moment. And Jinx in a Commodore, and his teammate JB Coeurrier in sixth as well.
We're also getting some word through. You mentioned Phil Boak having some wheel dramas there with being unable to partake properly in qualifying. We also found out that he did blow an engine in race number 1 as well, so hence the reason for his DNF, something to do with the spin that he had earlier on in that particular race, led to some other issues, which has led to the engine blowing a couple of laps later. So hence he did not pick up any points in that particular race. Now we're just hoping that the warm-up session will be fast-tracked and that we can get on with racing pretty quickly, given right now it is approximately 18 minutes to 11, so we're going to go a bit past our normal time where we finish these races by, and we're potentially looking in the next couple of weeks to get a poll up and running just to see if the race start time will get moved a bit further forward, or the qualifying start time get moved a bit further forward. For the avid viewers, you guys are probably aware the GT3 broadcast usually starts just before 8:30 Eastern. Qualifying takes place at 8:30 with 15-minute session, 10-minute warm-up, and then the formation laps, and then we're usually rolling by 9 o'clock. So the aim is to probably try and follow a similar path moving forward for the Super 2. I'm sure a number of the drivers would probably agree that that's a wise decision. Just going to make it all official, and then we will be up and underway. So until then, we just remain the way that we are, and it doesn't look like we're getting anywhere with the server being progressed forward to race anytime soon. So I think they're probably giving a little bit of time for the likes of Phil Boak and a couple of others that decided to drop out of the server for various reasons to get their issues sorted and to get back in. And I actually think Brenton Foley is another one of the drivers that has escaped from the session. So for the final time, hopefully, in this broadcast, we will take a short break, and we'll be back hopefully with race number 2 in a few minutes' time. So welcome back to AMS Oz Super 2. So not too far away from the second race of this evening getting underway. I think they're just going to let the clock run out. There's a couple of drivers that have just made their way back into the service, so given time to the likes of Phil Boak to hopefully get their wheel issues sorted, and probably just turning a couple of laps now, I'd imagine, to make sure that all is in good running order before they venture out onto the track. The last thing you want to do is go out onto the circuit, have some sort of a drama and wipe somebody out along with you. So probably a smart move that they've just let the session run. So only 3 minutes remaining in this warm-up session, and then we always hope that we get another winner when it comes to these sorts of races, but it's going to be pretty hard to go past that number 1 PBF engineering car, Hans, because it's bad fast.
Yeah, 100%. That car, the setup is very good. The driver is very good, and ultimately, it's just an unbeatable combination.
Yeah, I don't think you could have scripted any better with Foley and that car just going together really, really well. So, again, having a look at his tally of wins and podiums for the season, that was his 3rd win. He's got 3 second places and a 3rd to go along with his 6th place finish in race 1 at Winton, and then the 2 disconnects the first 2 races of the season. So, really motoring along quite nicely now is Brenton Foley in his charge to defend his championship from last year's AMS Oz Supercars, and certainly doing his points no harm by chalking up another 150 and reducing that 150 point deficit to his teammate, who, as we can just see here, has turned in a lap time of 1:6.368, so I dare say that's probably a good enough sign that his wheel dramas are more than likely sorted. In actual fact, here he is on circuit right now.
No, we're just seeing Brody and the PBF Academy car go in for a spin. If that was an aeroplane, that would be a tail spin, and that would be unrecoverable because you would be falling out of the sky. But Phil Boak looks like he's sorted out his wheel dramas now because the car is operating quite well, and he's about a quarter of a tenth up on his personal best time in this little practice session, this little installation lap, and he's given it a red hot go, seeing what the wheel can do, and he's going to go for another lap here potentially. We'll get another lap in.
The times are not looking too bad there for Phil Boak. He's going to have a lot of work to do though. He's actually going to have more work than he did last race, because he did start buried inside the top 10. He was 7th. He managed to get all the way up to what was ultimately 4th. Made the mistake, fell back down through the grid, and then ultimately had to retire. This time he's got to do it off the back of the grid, and he is going to have a handful of slower cars, the likes of Glenn Miles and Rowan Atkinson just ahead of him. Starts to get a little bit tougher then. Start getting into Cam Rutledge, Dwayne Davies and Turmo. Those sorts of guys are toward that bottom end of the grid. And then when he starts getting to knock on the door of the top 10 is probably where he's going to start meeting the most resistance in the form of Ricky Slick, Brendan Ross. Those guys are a little bit, especially Brendan Ross, a bit further down the order than what he'd normally prefer to be running. So we expect that that's where he will start to meet some rather stern opposition.
Yeah, the mid-pack does get pretty wild, and it does get pretty wheeling as well. So the worry is that when you're in the mid-pack, there's actually a lot of chance for front and rear damage. Whereas if you're at the back, oh yeah, no worries. It's only just the front that you're going to perhaps cop it. But once you get to the mid-pack, then cars start to... There's a lot of concertina effect here because there are some big stops, and also, the short shoot from turn 5 to turn 6. That's another place where cars get into each other, front to rear. And we might be on for a start here, so the cars are going to get ready to grid up.
Yeah, the 60-minute horn has gone off. So that will mean, drivers, get your setups right, get your 90-odd litres of fuel in the car quick smart, and get yourselves onto the grid, otherwise you'll be starting from the lane. Thankfully, we haven't had too many issues with drivers getting out onto the grid in a timely fashion. Very rarely do we have some drivers that have to start from the lane. They don't want to be starting from the pit lane because you end up a full sector behind. They don't release you until the cars have started crossing the Sector 1 timing beam, and on this particular track that is just before the right-hander at turn 5. 20 seconds remaining
Sorry, 20 seconds is the actual sector split around here. So you're already 20 seconds behind the field before you're off and running. So that's pretty much shoots your race in the foot. But if it's a big field, and incidentally, we've got Brenton Foley with a last-minute rabbit out of the hat trick with the PBF race engineering number 1. He's trying to get his championship defence back on track. Mitch Hathaway with a pretty solid time as well in the HDS Racing ZB Commodore. Then Will Devenish, we've seen a bit of a better qualifying effort from Will Devenish in the CRE Motorsport car. Then we've got Zach Ross in the Top Gear Racing Mother FGX Falcon flying the flag for Henry Ford. And Jinx in JP Simshed ZB Commodore. Different livery on the car, a bit darker livery. And then the second of the HDS racing cars, that's the JP Coeurrier JP Simshed car. That's in 6th. That will be lining up on the outside of the 3rd row. And then HDS Racing Pro-Am, Billy Dougal Salonga. He's had a pretty solid run thus far tonight. And then back to Brendan Ross, FCR Motorsport, sticking with the VF Commodore. VF Commodore is quite successful. As we see, PBF is also sticking with the VF. And then his teammate, that's Richard Slick III, Ricky Slick, FCR Motorsport. He's running a different livery on this car. Looks quite nice with the old bonnet stripes and a bit of a south of the United States type theme. And the Starbucks car, Top Gear Racing, Steve Burko moved to the sequential gearbox, having a bit more luck, but we did see him go off the road on race 1. Then Castrol Turmo Racing with Turmo at the wheel, set number 715 Nissan Altima. He's going to try and stay out of trouble. Dwayne Davies making his return, D2 Racing. Second of the CRE cars, that's Cam Rutledge Pro-Am. And then we've got Rowan Atkinson representing Scuderia Italia. Rhodey in PBF Academy. Philip Boak in 16th position. And off the rear of the grid, that's going to be Glenn Miles for the Spitwater Nissan Altima.
Phil Boak having a little bit of a better run out of the back of the grid, so he doesn't have to get past Glenn Miles, but he's still going to face a rather stern challenge to pick off a few cars before turn 1. Well, we had a little bit of turmoil in race 1. Are we on for a second billing? In 25 minutes, we'll have another race winner, but right now, 4 lights, away we go. Bit of a tardy start again from the right-hand side of the grid, which was Mitchell Hathaway. Foley comes across to cover off.
3 wide here.
Yeah, 3 wide right behind. Devenish is in the sucker hole in the middle between Hathaway and it was Jinx down the inside there. And Zach has been demoted back to 5th place, having started 4th. Good launch from Devenish on the inside for Hathaway here as they go up through turn 2, turn 3, and about to swing right through turn 5. Devenish up to P2 already. Has he got enough speed to challenge Foley? We'll find out, but for the moment, going to have to fend off Mitchell Hathaway, getting very, very close under brakes there. Going wide round the outside is Billy Dougal Salonga, so offline. And already a bit of contact at the back. Contact at the back, and I think that is BDS, and yes, it is. So he was on the outside there and ended up in the marbles. And
someone might have got into him. We're going to see in the replay. Maybe it was when he was coming back onto the track, someone actually fired into him. So we'll see. This is the early bit, so this is where he went off. Just locks the brake up there.
Oh, he looped the car on his own.
Oh, he spun. So that's Turmo who got into him. So that's unfortunate for Turmo. Hopefully Turmo doesn't have too much damage. We'll see.
Yeah, that's going to go down as a racing incident, I think, that
and
one.
Turmo's coming in.
Yeah, Turmo's in the garage, so definitely some steering damage, I'd say, on that car. BDS is probably very, very lucky out of that one. Phil Boak did have a good run out of that, made his way all the way up on the inside the top 10. Yellow flag down here at turn number 1. Whether or not, and that's for, was that Brendan Ross?
That's Brendan Ross, yeah, that's Brendan Ross. He's dropping back through the field. Now it's showing him a 16th, so what's happened to Brendan Ross? We'll have to get it up on the replay.
Here he comes.
Oh, he's just very late on the brakes, and he's there on that little that little tarmac patch there, and he's out in the weeds past that. So he's looking to try and get back on track, and he's going to come up to a very aerodynamically impaired ZB Commodore of Billy Dougal Salonga, who's trying to assault the back of Rhodey. Oh, he was on the grass there, and the thing didn't want to steer. It wanted to understeer, but he managed to keep it on the black stuff, only just. And he's going to come up to the back of Rhodey.
Yeah, he got hung up on the curb there as he tried to swing it to the right at...
and Rhodey's off the road, so possibly just let him through. Now he's going to have a race with Glenn Miles. They're going to have a bit of a drag race down the drag strip, we like to call it, 1.1k.
BDS doesn't have too much damage if he's still managing to extract some decent speed out of that car.
Perhaps only panel damage, actually, mostly cosmetic. So that's a very lucky. That's very lucky for BDS. He can actually continue on without too much harm. Now he's going to try and assault the back of Rowan Atkinson. He's flying the flag for the Italian flag carrier sponsored car, and Dwayne Davies is getting very close on the back of Philip Boak, but Philip Boak is already up to ninth, so he's made his way halfway up to the field on lap 3, but he's got about 9-second gap to his teammate in the lead. Oh, we see some smoke going up there, so possibly someone's locking up brakes or going off the road. We'll see. Yeah, okay, no such drama, which is a good thing. So Phil Boak is going to have to get up to the back of Ricky Slick, but it's one thing to catch Ricky Slick, but it's another thing to get past the widest VF Commodore in the world.
Especially in the hands of an American such as Ricky Slick.
He's the son of the grandson of a Confederate general I've heard. So he's very hard nosed. He definitely knows how to fight. That's for sure.
His favourite song, even though while he's in Australia, he's taken a liking to Midnight Oil. His favourite song is Redneck Wonderland. So I wonder where that's come from, but probably given the part of the United States where he's from, probably a bunch of them live down that way, I'd imagine.
I'm sure Copperhead Road gets a bit of rotation as well as he sort of runs wide there, and maybe a bit of Dixie as well. But Ricky Slick, he's just perhaps struggling under the might of the Phil Boak here.
We'll have a look at this. Steve Burko's having a red-hot go at the back of JP Coeurrier. So Coeurrier just staying inside the top 6 at the moment, which is where he qualified. Fastest lap of the race now going to Brenton Foley, so he lowers the benchmark that he'd set previous lap of a 5.8 to a 5.7. And we know Steve Burko's had been the last of the late breakers down here at turn number 1 before. Is he going to have another go here again? No, he decides not to this time. Very, very wisely picks his braking point, stays hot in the wheel tracks of JP's ZB Commodore. So work their way up through turns 2 and 3, swing it left at 4. Position themselves for the right-hander at 5. The next opportunity to have it go is down here at the turn 6 hairpin. You have to send it from there, and no, he's just going to hang on for a little bit more though, JP.
Well, speaking of sending it, we've got Ricky Slick, the Confederacy he's representing, and he's going to lose a bit more time to Phil Boak there, so Phil Boak is going to start really harassing the back of the Confederate driver. But meanwhile, Steve Burko is trying to harass the back of JP Coeurrier, that is, JP Simshed. Incidentally, Zach, he's on the back of this, he's on the tail end of this 3-car battle pack. That's Jinx Hathaway and himself, Zach. So let's see what sort of speed he's got on board the FGX Falcon.
Foley's really pulling out some good lap times at the moment as well. His last lap time.
Look at that. Hathaway, he's gone very wide there. And perhaps there looked like there was nearly going to be contact. So we're all making some interesting stare-style noises, watching just this race unfold. And no, he's not quite close enough to make a move on Hathaway. And Jinx, he locks up a little bit there. So it's all going on for young and old here. So it's getting quite interesting in the early laps of the race. Incidentally, Will Devenish, he runs a little bit wide. And he's sort of in that no man's land between the 3-car battle pack and the leader, Brenton Foley. Let's see if Will Devenish can actually manage to catch up to Brenton Foley a little bit.
Okay.
And he's managed to get... sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Never mind. But he's actually losing a bit of time on Foley.
Yeah, Foley's been doing consistent times in the 5. So the last 3 laps for Foley have been in the minute 5.7, minute 5.8 bracket. So Devenish not making too many inroads. We'll just wait to see where they cross the line this time around. So Hathaway's in the 6.4s. Devenish that time around a 6.4 himself. Foley actually a 6.9. So the gap has come down a little bit.
Oh, look at this sliding Mitch Hathaway. And he didn't quite give up that position to Zach, but he came very close.
That's allowed Jinx to escape.
So Jinx might be a chance to get on the back of Will Devenish, where they'll resume hostilities from race 1. They've been rubbing and banging panels all night. And these two ZB Commodores, they're quite evenly matched, aren't they,
Well,
Steve?
it's not over yet. Have a look at that. Zach had a little bit of a look down the inside of Mitchell Hathaway.
Oh, was that a spin? I think I saw a spin down at turn 6, possibly.
You're right. There it is. It's Steve Burko, and he's come together with JP Coeurrier. So what's all that about? Very, very keen-eyed or eagle-eyed you are. We will have a look here. So Burko was defending really, really heavily from a rampaging Phil Boak. Now what happened here? Oh, lost his braking marker completely. And Phil Boak managed to avoid them both. And a gimme for not only Ricky Slick and Phil Boak, but also I think that might have been Dwayne Davies. Yeah, it was Dwayne Davies sneaking through there as well. So that is going to be a rather interesting talking point after this, because Steve Burko is actually in front of JP Coeurrier on the road here. Now that position should have been addressed by now.
He's going to give the position back, it looks like. He's letting a lot of speed off.
Yeah.
And he's going quite wide. So if it wasn't for that, I would say that would have been definite penalty, because front to rear contact, he was nowhere near, and that was a very brave manoeuvre. But I think he was a bit stressed from the rampaging Phil Boak. Like you said, he's like a rampaging bull. He's trying to crash his way. Not crash his way, sorry, but it's a bit like Darren Mullane, the old Collingwood footballer. Like he's just trying to rampage his way through. It's not pretty, but he's got to get it done. And Phil Boak, he's been getting it done so far. He's up into 6th place at the moment.
Yeah, he certainly is. I don't think that that's the end of that argument. I still think that there might be a little bit of a grievance filed about what happened there. Potentially has ruined JP's race. He was up there in 6th place. It was an honest driving mistake, I'd imagine, from Steve Burko. Probably had his mirrors full of that PBF Commodore, and just didn't pay enough attention to meet the braking marker, busy trying to look at what defence he wanted to put up, and he was too close to the car in front. But you've got to balance all the equations out. Meanwhile, Brendan Ross has decided, thank you very much, I'm going to come down the inside of you for what is ultimately now 10th place.
Hip and shoulder.
Fair hip and shoulder as well, a little bit of panel rubbing, nothing too serious there. Didn't just escorted him wide, didn't bash him wide, which is good to see. A fair race there. Let's go back up to these two battle up here. Oh, that's Boak around. So Phil Boak has gone around, and
more
this
dramas
is
for Boak.
And this is the second time that he's done this. He did it all on his own sim in race number 1. He's managed to get going again. He got a couple of corners further on from where he did it. I would imagine it's just picking up the accelerator a little bit too early again. Or he's taken a lot of curb, and that's what's done it. Picked up the accelerator while he was still on the curb, and you're looking back there and seeing Dwayne Davies and Ricky Slick come through with...
So the lose wasn't that bad, because it was only about a half lose. But the thing is, when he tried to flick spin it around again, he actually spun the whole way around. So it was full 180 at that point.
He's right.
But it's been disastrous for Phil Boak. It's been a very bogey track for him tonight.
Yeah, that's the best statement I think you could possibly make in this situation. A bogey track. It's a shame there's not a drop round for him, because he'd be dropping this one in a heartbeat. His roller coaster of a race weekend continues, and the battle between Dwayne Davies and Ricky Slick still raging on for 6th and 7th place. Let's just go a bit further up the field and see what's happening up here, because we were watching Zach and Mitchell Hathaway. They were on the back of Jinx at one point, but then they decided to fight and argue the point and allowed Jinx to escape. And now Jinx is really getting close to the back of Will Devonish up here as well. So halfway into this race, or approaching the halfway point in this race, and indeed the fact we now cross over the halfway point in the season officially, and Devonish holding off the advances. I think, and Zach's gone way deep.
Oh, they've gone so wide there.
I think that might have been some contact there, because they've both gone off. Hathaway's come out the beneficiary of that one. He was already ahead of him on the road. I did say at the start of the broadcast that you need a car that does everything really, really well here, and Zach really did send it. And a little bit late on the brakes from Mitchell Hathaway too. I think he was going to try and hang around the inside, but at the end of the day, it actually gave him some really good avoiding action there, just by the virtue of the lockup meant that he wasn't clattered into by the FG Falcon.
What's happened there? Probably he saw the brake lights, and then Zach's just like, oh, brake a little bit later. Whoops, I've gone over the curb here, and luckily they all managed to get out of it without crashing into each other. But Zach is still holding down 5th place ahead of Dwayne Davies. There's quite a sizable margin back, so he needn't worry about that. But incidentally, Will Devonish and Jinx, they're going to have a battle again, perhaps, with Jinx. He's catching ever so slightly on the back of Will Devonish.
Devonish just eked the margin out that time around as well. He got it out to a minute, to about another 2/10 over Jinx that time around. So the margin is not a huge one. It's only a second, but Foley's got 3 seconds on Devonish at the moment as well. Rhodey just thinking about where he can get out of the way here. Devonish pops the lights on just to remind him. Faster car coming through. Good job from Rhodey. Just gets out of the way, decides, you know what, I can just take a trip across the grass. There's no real worry here. I'm on my own sim.
The old off-track 1X, like in iRacing. But we're not in iRacing, we're in AMS. It's, you've cut the track, you've got to give up your time. But here we go. Hostilities resume. Let's see if Jinx can get back onto the rear bar of Will Devonish. And hopefully we don't see some glitch issues with the track this time. As we see Brenton Foley, he's quite a way ahead. He's about 3.7 seconds ahead. And then it's another, it's 0.8 of a second now, separating Will Devonish and Jinx.
Sure is. I'm going to go back and pick this little battle up here because Phil Boak's honing in on the back of Ricky Slick like a missile at the moment. His lap times have been pretty good since he recovered from that spin down at turn 6. And he's been catching these guys quite quickly. Just dropped away a little bit in that final sector. These two are not really fighting and arguing over 6th and 7th place. They're just running line astern, but if DD decides to make a mistake for any reason whatsoever, Ricky Slick will be right there, and I dare say Phil Boak will be buying into it as well. So watch how quickly Boak closes up under brakes here. So he closes right up, carries a lot more speed through turn 6, and you can see the margin just shrink very, very rapidly just in that little short space of time. And we're basically keeping them, all 3 of these drivers, in the same frame at the same time. That's how tight they are. You can see their little lock up from DD as well, so he knows he feels like he's under the gun. Now these guys all reside in the same Discord server, so they're all talking to each other. So they'll all be giving each other a little bit of banter, I'd imagine, as well as trying to concentrate really, really hard on their racecraft. All the meanwhile, the PBF Commodore is stalking.
Look at that. You can see he catches in turn 1 as well. Let's see what sort of different lines they take through there. Some a little bit wider, some a little bit narrower. Ricky Slick, he's come a bit narrower there. He's trying to straighten the exit as much as he can so he can get maximum speed on the back of D2. D2, incidentally, is representing the Ford camp. Oh, yellow flag here, so what's going on?
Yeah, we've got, that's Rhodey off. There he is, just off the other side of the circuit. So would have run deep down there at turn 5, made a mistake, but good awareness from Ricky Slick. He was sizing up a move into turn 5 and did the right thing and got out of it. But that has unfortunately put him now under the gun of Phil Boak, who might be sizing up a passing move down into the first turn. You can see what he's doing here. He's actually trying to take a different line through the final corner and get on the gas a lot earlier and try
They
and...
both went on the dirt there, actually. So that's going to hurt both their speed off the corner. And DD, he gets a get out of jail free card for another lap. He's flying the forward flag. I'll continue that thought from before. He's well up into the top 10, so it's good to see some Fords up there. And yeah, Phil Boak, he's probably thinking, I've been here before. Where have I seen this car before? I know. I passed this car and then I undid all my hard work, which is quite unfortunate for Phil Boak because he is one of the faster, more experienced guys in the category. And, oh, look at that. Ricky Slick gets very close. You see the concertina effect there, Steve, how close they get into turn 6, and that's why we see a lot of front to rear contact there.
Yeah,
and as they continue out of the valley section, they're going through a bit more of a roller coaster ride. And Phil Boak, he takes a bit more curve. He's trying to take a different line. Ricky Slick off. He's made it, yeah, so under the gun, and he's made a mistake there. So you'd think that, oh, a lot of sliding too. So I'm pretty sure Ricky Slick, he knows a little bit about guns, but not enough to feel comfortable when he's under the pump there.
No, very, very easy pickings for Phil Boak there. Just a little mistake, just applying the blowtorch to the back, and eventually Ricky Slick gave up 7th place. So can Phil get one more? He really needs to minimise the damage that he's suffered in this, because Foley is looking set to take another 150 points as it stands right now. A 7th place finish for Phil Boak would net him only 96, so he'd lose another 54 points of his advantage and the lead would be down to 150. That's only a sprint race win if he can finish. If he finishes in 7th place. If he finishes in 6th place, which he's still got plenty of opportunity to do, it'll give him 102, so it'll give him another 6 points, so it'll only minimise the damage lost in this race to 48. But still, it's a big chunk of points. His teammates were really taking it out of him, and to make matters even worse, Devonish and Hathaway, who are behind him, or actually behind Foley in the championship, rather still behind Phil Boak in the championship as well, they're gaining points as well. So the race is continuing to tighten in all forms here. Speaking of Devonish, we'll go back and see what he's up to at the minute, because he's now coming under pressure from Jinx yet again. So these two have been glued together for a little while. This is the closest they've been all race long, though. Jinx is just continuing to find little bits of time there. I think he's just more following the lines that Will has been taking. Because if you look at some of the lap times the last time around, Jinx was 0.3 of a second quicker than Devonish, but they were both 1 and 2/10 of a second slower than Foley, actually. In actual fact, Jinx's last time around was actually a 10th quicker than Foley. I do apologise. So Jinx is just starting to come on in these last couple of laps. He's got 4 more to go, as we're now about to start lap 18 of 21. Can he find a way past Will Devonish? Can he keep the flag flying for the JP Sim Shed squad after those 3 brilliant wins in a row from his teammate JP Coeurrier, in need of another podium? Be good to see another podium sitter, just to try and spread the love around a little bit more and mix it up a little bit at the front. At the moment, Foley's in a class of his own. Yellow flag again down here at turn 6. We've seen action here before. We're just trying to see what's bigger. It's that's Rhodey. So Rhodey's facing the wrong way, so probably again just got on the curb, but he did the smart thing and just stayed off the track, let the leaders through. So this has not been a good race for Rhodey. He's finished in, I think it was 12th in the previous race as well. So that was a solid result despite being a lap down, but he's now gone 2 laps down and making a lot more mistakes in this particular race. So not going according to plan for the PBF Academy driver.
He's probably hunger flatting a little bit. He had to refuel with cookies, and unfortunately fast energy in between the races. It doesn't quite last 20 minutes, does it, Steve?
No, it doesn't. Now I've just noticed
Turmo DNF.
Yeah, Turmo's DNF, and I also just noticed that D2 had come out of the pits as well, and he was right in front of Ricky Slick as well, and Phil Boak. So Boak, another position, gets him up to P6, but he's some 10 seconds behind Zach at the moment, so I don't think he's going to be able to catch him between now and the checkered flag. But D2 must have had some sort of trouble, and at least has come in and got himself sorted, so at least he can pick up some points. Now, JP Coeurrier and Brendan Ross are also fighting over 9th and 10th place, so the last 2 spots on the podium, it's not on the podium, so the last 2 spots inside the top 10. It's getting late, I'm getting things confused here. But this race weekend certainly hasn't gone according to plan for the driver of the JP Sim Shed car, but he's still managed to pick up points, but just not as many. At the moment, he is still behind Billy Dougal-Salonga, so that advantage that he had over him, he surrendered in the first race of this evening. He's going to surrender a further handful of points. It won't be too many, but it'll be a couple more points. Another 6 points will be the loss, but he'll still be firmly inside the top 12 on the timing screens, or the point standings that we put up at the beginning of every race. Jinx and Devonish and Coeurrier and Ross, the closest battles on track. And
we might see a pass here. Here we go. Here we go.
Brendan.
No, he shut the door very firmly there. We've got 1 lap to go. Sorry, 2 laps to go rather. And it's going to be all the elbows out.
He made his one defensive move there, did JP Coeurrier, and shut off the avenue down the inside of the track to Brendan Ross very, very early. Moved back across and gave him a car width, which is perfectly legal.
They're coming up to some No, sorry, I was about to say lap traffic. No, it's Billy Dougal Salonga. His speed's not too bad considering the
Oh, Brendan
aerodynamic
Ross,
impairment.
no!
Oh, front to rear contact, and we've seen JP has had problems there before with front to rear contact, but they managed to get out of that one. Just a bit of panel damage, and off they go again.
Geez, that was very, very close. That was almost like Steve Burko all over again into the back of JP, and I'm sure that's not the only time. And more Morse
yeah, a
code.
bit more.
More Morse code on the rear bumper. Brendan,
Oh, he's going to go around the outside.
no, I think he's going to try and set him up here for turn one. Now he's got to feign it here,
Try
Brendan
the
Ross.
crisscross.
He's going to try and feign what he wants to do next and just see if JP decides to defend and then send it the other way. JP's going to drive it straight down the middle of the road. Brendan Ross is...
Oh, look at that. He's swerving all over the road here. He's trying to find a way back past the widest ZB Opel in the world.
JP's having none of it. This is really playing for sheep stations for 9th and 10th place. Every single point is crucial. Meanwhile, we've missed the race win to Brenton Foley. So he's gone
look at
through.
this.
And a last-minute pass for
look at
Jinx. Great result from Jinx to get up to second place. We've surely got to go and take a quick look at the replay there. In actual fact, he had it done before they got into the final section of the circuit as well. So great job from Jinx flying the flag for JP Simshed. So he gets the job done. We were too busy focused on that battle between 9th and 10th place to see the results. Mitchell Hathaway comes home in 4th, Zach 5th. Boat gets all the way up to 6th, so minimises the points deficit lost. Ricky Slick will come home in 7th place, and BDS will be ahead of JP Coeurrier, who's still going to hold off Brendan Ross. So a real fight for the last two spots inside the top 10. And it settled in favour of Coeurrier with
Highlights reel of the...
and Brendan Ross not happy, giving a little bit of a nudge to the back of Coeurrier after that one. That was some pretty heavy defence, and the chaos that is the end of the race is now taking place. So burnouts, collisions, everything you can think of, it's happening.
I wonder if we can actually get a recording of the pass that Jinx made on Will Devonish. That would be good to see. We can analyse it to the nth degree and have a bit of fun there. But we'll see which of our podium place getters. They're the first ones to get here into the commentary box, so I can pick their brains yet again.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get them up into the box very, very shortly. But for the meantime, just being treated to a drift show by Brenton Foley.
Delightful long black 11s left on the road. And that's what we always like to see. Incidentally, Rhodey's got into the fence and he's lost the rear wing of it. But thankfully, some of the big teams like PVF, they've got a million chassis to run through. So all the chassis they've got, it would be hard if you were sleuthing that. But meanwhile, we've got one of our podium place getters. That's Will Devonish. He's up here in the box. And I might as well just start picking his brain now. Hello, Will.
Hey.
Well, you're still on the podium, but third step, not the second step. How was the old pass that Jinx fired in the closing stages?
Yeah, I knew it was coming, and I know I lost a lot of grip in the front, so I don't think I could have really stopped it. But that last lap was it was a tight lap, so it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Steve and we saw it, and we were making a whole lot of excited noises. Let me tell you, it was fantastic. But good to see you get up on the podium, and the old ZB Commodore is performing well.
Yeah, and really happy with the CRE team. Unfortunately, Cam's had a bit of bad luck this round, but the engineers will help him out next round, and hopefully we can get him up a bit more.
Yeah, Cam definitely runs a good operation with CRE racing team. And we've got our first place getter, but we don't quite have our second place getter. Maybe Jinx doesn't know the way to the podium. But Brent Foley, congratulations on another well-earned win. And you're starting to close that gap to the championship leader.
Yeah, it was another really good race. It went really quick for me. I just got into a rhythm and I looked down and there was 2 laps to go, and by then I was just kind of managing the gap. But No, as I said in the first interview, that I'm a big fan of the track. The car absolutely hooked up. Just zero complaints at all tonight. It was really good. Unfortunate for Phil to have his issues, to have a wheel issue, missing qualifying, and then to have a engine blow in a weird spot. Obviously, I'm happy to close the gap down, but at the same time, means everyone else is catching up to him, which is PBF kind of lead for the championship. It's now lowered, but overall for me, it was a really good night.
Well done, mate. Congratulations. And hopefully this spurs a bit of a run for you in the championship, and maybe going into the second half of the season, you can continue that good run.
Thanks very much.
We're still looking for our second place getter, and he's not quite here yet. So, Stephen, I'll talk to you. What did you think of that, mate? What a fantastic night's racing we've had.
Yeah, good lot of racing tonight. We kind of expected that there would be a little bit more turmoil than there has been, but we got our fair share across both races, so that's not too bad. Most of them were actually pretty well self-inflicted. A lot of drivers spinning the car, especially taking a lot of curb, and a couple were helped around, but nowhere near the amount that we have seen in previous races. But the only two incidents obviously in mind are the JP Coeurrier and Steve Burko situation down there at the hairpin at turn 6, and I think maybe one that was escorted wide at turn 1 as well. But the only one I can see probably coming out of that for review would be that turn 6 incident in that race just gone. So as much as the redress happened, it happened probably a lap later than it should have. It needed to happen a little bit earlier than that. A lot of the drivers don't realise it doesn't matter if you give up position or one or more positions as a result. You have to get the redress done ASAP. We've seen that before with the likes of Mark Webber being asked to let someone through, and then obviously having another position be surrendered as a result. Although it's unintentional, that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. So I think that one is more than likely going to be looked at. In actual fact, we have got our second place man. He has made it to the podium, so he's all yours, mate. Go on.
Hello, Jinx. You've managed to find your way to the little winners rostrum. So good to see you managed to finish this race after an unfortunate glitch with the track. But well done on a fantastic pass and a fantastic performance.
Thank you, guys. It's actually really good to be racing again. Haven't raced for a while, so really enjoying it so far. And yeah, the race with Will's been really good.
Did you give the old anti-roll bars a good adjusting?
I surely did.
We'll give it a plug, actually. Jinx has a Jinx shifters. They actually make shifters and anti-roll bars, anti-roll bar blade type adjusters, as if it's in a real supercar or a real race car, and it's all attached to the same bolt and bearing as the shifter. So we'll give that a plug. They all look really good, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They're actually quite complicated to build. They're actually a pain, to be quite honest, but they turn out really good and they work. So yeah, very happy with them.
Before we go into full propeller headland, they use potentiometers.
No, they actually use micro switches.
There you go.
It's the most reliable way to make it work.
So micro switch for up and micro switch for down.
Yes, and just returns back to center. But future may have something else, so I'll keep you posted.
Good stuff. Now we'll return back from propeller headland. Where did you actually get the pass done on Will Devonish?
At the end of the main straight, I finally got the slipstream and finally got close enough and drove up the inside and a little bit of door-to-door banging and finally got it done and nearly did the same thing on the last corner, nearly turned it around on the rear brake, but managed to pull it off.
Good stuff. Well done, mate. And good to see you up here, another podium place getter in our Super 2 AMS series.
Thank you.
Thanks to and congratulations to all our podium place getters for their time tonight. And back to you, Steve.
Thank you, Hans. Well, with another night's racing over and done with, the point standings are very, very different to what we started the night. Phil Boak still has the lead, but it has been severely cut into. So it's only 156 points the deficit between himself and Brenton Foley now. at the top of the standings. So Will Devonish still occupies the third place overall. Mitchell Hathaway still fourth. Brendan Ross still fifth. Cam Rutledge still sixth. Ricky Slick has slipped ahead of Turmo by the result of Turmo's DNF in that particular second race this evening. So a change of position there. Steve Burko is still holding on to ninth, and Billy Douglas Salonga still holds on to 10th, having gone ahead of JP Coeurrier in race 1 by virtue of the 6th to 10th place finish, and actually finished one spot further ahead of him on the road. So the run of 3 race wins to JP has been stopped. It's a pair of wins to Brenton Foley tonight, so he now moves to 4 race wins total for the season. The next best, obviously, JP with 3, 2 to Phil Boak, and then 1 shared between Hathaway and Ross. So that's where it all goes. And we next head to Townsville in a couple of weeks' time from now. So we return to the feature race format. So there it is, if you hadn't seen it before, there on the calendar, July the 11th, we'll be back here in the box. And that is set to be a rather large race. If we have a look at what it's scheduled to be a 62 lap affair. So pit stops, street circuit. Hans, there's going to be plenty of action around the narrow streets of Townsville in a couple of weeks' time. What are your thoughts moving forward?
Yeah, being a street circuit and then having the feature race format, it's almost like this has disaster written all over it, because if you DNF, it's going to be like Adelaide, it's going to be like, Barbagallo. Whereas if you just, sail off the end of a corner and you go into a fence and the damage is too bad, you're basically done. And that's a big fat 0, a nice round number. But unfortunately, that's not the number we're trying to go for if you're trying to get up into the into your championship defense, or trying to work up the field. But so I mean, everyone just needs to be a bit more careful. Perhaps maybe button it off a little bit. Try not to be, it's a long race. It's about 170k. They need to start thinking about the long term in the race. And I mean, the Reed Park Street Circuit at Townsville, some of it actually is a dedicated race circuit, so there's plenty of runoff, but some parts aren't. So I reckon that real hairpin type corner coming out of there, you see a lot of cars make side-to-side contact coming out of that hairpin, and then they send it into the final corner, which is a pretty brave place if you want to get a move done on the last lap. But hopefully it should be good, and looking forward to 2 weeks' time joining you in the commentary box again, and we'll see another fantastic race, and hopefully we'll see some new podium place getters as well.
Yeah, a little bit longer than 2 weeks from now. We'll be up there with the Townsville Street Circuit race. But in the meantime, this has been the 7th round of the AMS Oz Super 2 series here at Hidden Valley. Please join us again next time when we bring you the Townsville race, but also please join us on Sunday for the finale of the GT3 World Challenge. My name's been Steve DeVries, aka Nether. Been joined by Hans Brunswick in the box. For us, it's please drive safely, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.